Hi collective, welcome back to my channel. I am the Nosy Witch and this is my channel, Nosy Witch Tarot. I do collective pick a card readings here on YouTube. Just a little heads up before we get started, my readings do tend to be pretty long, they tend to be deep dives. I am currently trying to work on some slightly shorter, more easily bingeable readings. This one probably won't be all that short. This is more of a deep dive, I would say. We will see. However, if you have been here before, you already know what I'm like. I love to waffle, I love to go on tangents, so my readings are probably never going to be that short. With that said, feel free to grab a hot or cold beverage of choice, get settled, get cozy, because we have a lot to get through today. This reading is titled, What Kind of Work Truly Feeds Your Soul? Career, Passion and Purpose. I just want to mention before we get started with today's reading, if you did not see my latest community post, one of my absolute favourite creators in this space, Psychic Siren Tarot, recently had her main YouTube account hacked, which is honestly just absolutely devastating after all the hard work she has clearly put into her channel. I have made, like I said, a community post with all the details, and I've also linked her second channel there. If you feel called to and you have a moment, please go and show her some love and support. It would truly mean so much. She is an absolutely wonderful human and I am truly sorry this has happened to her, and I just think we can all show her a little bit of love when she needs it the most. So I'm rambling here already, but before I get into the full breakdown of this reading, I just want to give a little shout out to an amazing subscriber who actually gave me the idea to do this reading today. The whole concept for this was suggested to me by her, and honestly as soon as she mentioned it, I just couldn't wait to get started and play around with it. I thought it was such a cool and thoughtful idea. I'm not going to say her username, just in case she would rather not be pointed out. We don't actually know each other's real names, but we have connected in this little corner of the internet, and I can tell that she is just a genuinely beautiful soul, someone with a lot of integrity, someone who really shows up and someone who always goes the extra mile, and I am just endlessly grateful for her support. She has helped me keep going on this channel more than she probably realizes, and that kindness, it really does mean a lot. And honestly that goes for so many of you, and the best way that I can really thank you guys for giving me that support is just by giving you the readings you actually want. So if you ever have topic suggestions like this one, I'm always happy to add them to my ever-growing list of ideas. So that person knows exactly who they are, and if you are listening, this is a little nod just for you. Thank you so much, and I really hope you enjoy today's reading, and to everyone else listening, I hope you enjoy it too. Now that I'm done with that soppy little ramble, let's talk about what this reading is actually about. So, in terms of the reading itself, with this theme, I really wanted to focus on work, but not just in the sense of like a job that we go to for a paycheck. When I say work, I mean it in a much broader sense, including in the spiritual sense. So it's not just what do you do for a job, it's what gets you up and out of bed in the morning, what lights you up inside, what gives you that feeling of purpose and momentum and meaning. What kind of work encourages you to show up and actually want to do the work? Now, for some of you, that absolutely will be a career. For others, it might not be, and that's completely valid. This reading is really more about the work we're here to do as human beings, the thing or things that nourish us, sustain us, and really feed our souls. I wanted this reading to come at that question from lots of different angles. So yes, of course, if you are unsure about your career direction, if you're looking for reassurance you are on the right path, or you're curious about your strengths and natural gifts, this reading is very much for you. But also, some people don't center their purpose around career specifically at all, and that's okay too. Maybe, you have a day job and your true soul nourishment comes from something else. Maybe it comes from a passion project, a creative outlet, a spiritual practice. Maybe your purpose lies in caregiving or community or raising a family or just simply being fully yourself in the world. And all of that absolutely counts. So we're going to look at this from many different perspectives. There will be lots of examples and different possibilities that might come through for different piles or even within the same pile. And yeah, there might be more discussion, surrounding career and financial abundance, especially in that more traditional sense. But I really want to emphasize that this reading is not only about that. If you don't find your purpose in work as work is usually defined, or if that kind of work isn't accessible to you for any reason, health, capacity, current circumstance, I still very much think there's something here for you. This could be about volunteering, like I said, a passion project, a side mission, multiple callings at once. But at its core, this reading is asking, what drives you, what moves you, what nourishes you, what feeds your soul. So in terms of the full reading breakdown and what we're going to be looking at, we are using a mix of tarot and oracle cards today, and we'll be exploring things like your soul imprint, so who you are at a core level, and your gifts. We're going to be looking at what kind of work truly feeds and nourishes you. We're asking, under what circumstances might you find the most purpose? We're looking at what types of work you feel most passionate about. We're looking at how you work best and what helps you feel supported versus what doesn't work best, how you might not feel supported. We are looking at what you might be able to do to facilitate that flow and that feeling of support, and anything else that wants to come through. So numbers, songs, random details, intuitive messages, whatever wants to pop up. Now, gentle disclaimer before we move on, you guys know that I tend to use very tangible real-world examples in my readings. Please bear in mind these readings are never ever meant to box you in. They are just there to ground the energy and make the message easier to feel into. They're not the only way that something can show up. So if I talk about purpose or soul work and I mention a specific role or field and you're like, wait, like I'm doing something completely different, please don't panic. I'm not saying that you've chosen the wrong path. Often this reading is more about how you show up to what you're doing and what you need in order to feel nourished within it, rather than the exact specific job title. So for example, if I say something like, you're a healer, that doesn't mean you're meant to drop everything you're doing right now and become a shaman in a temple somewhere. Like, healing can show up in many different forms. You might be a hairdresser, and that doesn't mean you're wrong for being a hairdresser, because getting your hair done, talking to the girls in the salon, feeling seen and feeling cared for, that's a form of healing to me. That's incredibly healing to me. So it's not saying you're doing the wrong thing. Maybe the healing is within your hands. Maybe it's your presence. Maybe it's the conversations that you hold space for within your profession. The profession itself doesn't always define the purpose, the energy does. And for some of you, that energy might point towards expansion or pivoting or trying something new. And for others, it might simply validate where you already are, and both of those things are okay. But if you have been feeling lost or unsure, or like you haven't quite found the thing that fits you totally yet, this reading is really here to explore that very, very gently. So as usual, we have 5 piles to choose from today. You are welcome to choose more than one pile if you feel called to do so. This reading is timeless whenever you find it is the right time. As always with collective readings, take what resonates and leave the rest for somebody else. It's a free reading on the internet and I am not holding you hostage here. Disrespect, bigotry and general weirdness will be banished, rebuked and returned straight back to sender, but kindness is always welcome, and you can never overshare too much with me as long as you do so with respect and compassion. So we have these baked goods stickers to choose from today. They look absolutely delicious. And before you choose your pile, I would like to know, what is your favourite baked good? Please leave it below in the comments. Are you sweet or are you savoury? What kind of pastries have your heart? If you didn't think I'd be bringing food into this reading about what feeds your soul, you are dead wrong, because I am a Taurus moon and my life revolves around food. Anyway, I'm going to introduce the piles. So over here we have pile 1 with the Wild Unknown Tarot and the Cinnamon Swirl. Over here we have pile 2 with the Cosy Witch Tarot and the Muffin. Over here we have pile 3 with the Gourmet Tarot and the Brownies. Over here we have pile 4 with the Everyday Witch Tarot and the Pretzel. And over here we have pile 5 with the Cute Ghost Tarot and what I believe is it a cheesecake or is it a lemon meringue pie? I'm not 100% sure. I'm sorry if I have misgendered my baked good sticker. Not misgendered, mislabeled. Some kind of cake or pie. It looks yummy anyway. So that's pile 5. And once you've chosen your pile, please head to the description box or the pinned comment below. Timestamps will be listed there and they will take you to the start of your chosen reading. I just want to say thank you so much for being here and for listening. Your likes, your comments, your kindness, it genuinely makes my day. You guys restore my faith in humanity on a daily basis, and I'm so grateful to share this space with you. If you would like to support the channel, the best ways to do that are to like, comment, share, hype and sub. This is my 3rd year on YouTube. It hasn't always been easy, but I'm still here and I'm still trying, and your support means more to me than you know. With that said, I will see you at your chosen pile, collective. Hi Pile 1 Collective, if you chose the Wild Unknown Tarot and you chose the Cinnamon Swirl and you chose Pile 1, you are in the correct place. Welcome to your reading, friends. If you would like a full breakdown of everything this reading will entail, please check out my introduction. I do go through absolutely everything there. I will also leave some details in the pinned comment below for your reference. I would recommend checking at least one of those out so you know what to expect from this reading today. Quick little reminder before we get started, if you haven't seen my latest community post, please take a second to check that out. One of my beautiful friends in this space on YouTube, Psychic Siren Tarot, has unfortunately lost her main channel. Her channel got hacked. It is really, really unfortunate. She is a really, really talented creator who works incredibly hard, and she has had her channel stolen from her. So I have linked her second channel in that community post. Please have a look at that and go and support her if you can. I think she needs some love right now. With that said, today's reading is titled What Kind of Work Truly Feeds Your Soul? Career, Passion and Purpose. So this reading is all about nourishment, the kind that sustains you long term. We're looking at what lights you up, what you're naturally good at, and the type of work in the very broadest sense that helps you feel aligned, purposeful and alive. And honestly, at the heart of it, we are simply asking, what does your soul love to gobble up like an expertly glazed baked good? So that's why I've chosen these stickers today. For some of you, this may show up through career or creative pursuits. For others, it might speak more to a passion, purpose, or just the way you show up in the world more generally. There's no pressure here to be anything. This is more about understanding what actually feeds you rather than drains you. So with that said, and without any further hesitation, let's have a look at what we pulled for you today, Power One. I'm just going to pop your little cinnamon swirl to one side. So starting over here on the left, we have got, from the Archetypes Oracle, Hedonist, light attributes, inspires creative energy to embrace the good things in life, celebrates the beauty in yourself. Shadow attributes, pursues pleasure to the detriment of health, indulges at the expense of others. And clarifying, we have got the Five of Wands in reverse. From the Woodland Wardens Oracle, we have got the Duck and... Oh, I hate getting this card. No, I love getting this card. It's a beautiful card, but I cannot pronounce chrysanthemum. I don't know why I can't pronounce it. I'm so sorry. I have such a hard time with this word. But you can see it. The duck and that word, look. And clarifying look, we have got the Fool. Oh, that's funny because we've got the duck card, and then on the Fool card from the Wild Unknown Tarot is a little baby bird. I don't think it's a duck, but I just find that kind of interesting. From the Hecate Oracle, we have got Ritual, Find Joy in Rhythm. And clarifying Ritual, we have got the Daughter of Swords, and we have another bird. We have an owl. Daughter of Swords, I believe that is the Page of Swords in this deck. From the Wild Muse Oracle, we have got Beauty Sleep. So this is a pal for my sleepy girls and guys and non-binary friends. And clarifying Beauty Sleep, we have got the Daughter of Pentacles. So we have got the Page of Pentacles, with a beautiful Bambi-looking deer. Maybe somebody here has Bambi eyes, or like a deer-like beauty. Very elegant. From the Pearls of Wisdom Oracle, we have got Self-Discovery. In opening ourselves up to new experiences, you may find unexpected joy, reminding us that life is full of surprises. And clarifying that, we have got the Tower reversed. Well, Tower moments are definitely journeys of self-discovery, aren't they? So, yeah. And from the Blooming Cat Tarot, we have got Gemini, adaptable, curious, fun, indecisive, unreliable, impulsive. May 21st to June 20th might be relevant for you guys. Element air, so air placements might be relevant. Mercury, the planet, might be relevant. The Lovers might be relevant. Agate, Tourmaline, the colours yellow and green. Lucky numbers 3, 5 and 6. And Lavender and Lily of the Valley might be relevant to you guys. And clarifying the Gemini card, we've got the Ace of Swords. It's a really cool card to get paired with Gemini. Before we get into the reading, I just want to quickly go through some number confirmations for you guys. As always, these do not have to resonate for this to be your pile, so please don't force it. But if they do resonate, you can take them as extra little nudges or confirmations. Also, with the astrology card from the Blooming Cats Tarot, you do not have to be a Gemini, you do not have to be an air sign. Of course, it's extra confirmation if that does apply, but this is more representing an archetype and, you know, things stereotypically associated with that sign could be relevant. Doesn't mean you have to be that sign, okay? So yeah, the numbers coming through on this card are 3, 5 and 6. These numbers could show up as a date or a birthday, a month or year, an age or life stage, a life path, an angel number or synchronicity you'll see in a lot of, an astrological house or the sign associated with that house. They could also show up in ways I haven't even mentioned here, and if they do, feel free to take that as confirmation too. I can't list every single way these numbers might apply, so just think of these as gentle signals, not rules. And yeah, like I say, with the Gemini energy, this card is coming through more to represent the energy you're currently in, as well as those strengths and traits that are generally associated with Gemini. So things that are mentioned on the card, you know, adaptable, curious, fun, communication, learning, mental stimulation. So even if Gemini isn't prominent in your charts at all, this message can still apply. That said, if you do have Gemini placements, especially Gemini, Sun, Moon, or Rising, or other strong Gemini energy in your chart, you can absolutely take that as extra confirmation here. Alright, with that out of the way, let's move on to the reading itself and start unfolding what we pulled for you today, Pile 1. So Pile 1, honestly, straight away, I'm getting the work that you're meant to do on this earth is something you are meant to deeply enjoy. You're meant to properly enjoy it. It should feel pleasurable. It should feel nourishing. It should feel like a treat. And I'm getting that even just looking at that hedonist card. We'll obviously talk about the shadow side of that in a minute because there is a reason why these archetype cards come with shadow attributes as well. But I want to say it plainly first of all, part of why your soul incarnated here is to actually enjoy the human experience in its fullest capacity. So your purpose, your work, it should not feel like that stereotypical version of work where you're just like pushing through and you're gritting your teeth and you're forcing yourself and you're constantly fighting for survival. For you, the work that feeds your soul should feel like something, I want to say you get to indulge in, like luxury. It should feel like comfort, like a cinnamon bun or a cinnamon swirl. Something that's not just a means to an end, but something that gives you life while you're doing it. And with that, I'm not saying that it's never allowed to be challenging. It can be challenging, but it should be kind of challenging in a fun way, not in that way where you feel like you're sacrificing your basic needs to make something happen. Like if the only way you can get by at work is by skipping sleep or skipping meals or running yourself into the ground or constantly being stressed and depleted, and maybe it's not the thing for you. Maybe that doesn't serve you, Pal 1. Work for you guys should not be about grinding until you burn out. It just shouldn't. Like, you guys aren't meant to be the type of person who's like, right, I'm going to set my alarm 4 a.m. and then I'm going to have an ice bath and I'm going to blend raw steak in a smoothie and then I'm going to take 40 supplements because 3 meals a day means you're not on that grind set mindset, bro. Like, no, that is not your lane. If something doesn't sound remotely enjoyable or nourishing or at least worth it on a soul level, it is probably not your purpose, Pal 1. If someone tells you about something and you're like, ew, like that doesn't sound enjoyable, or like blended up steak in a smoothie, that probably means it's not for you because you're meant to enjoy your life. And what I'm seeing here is that your purpose aligns when the work feels easy and comfortable in your body and there's a solid rhythm to it that actually works alongside your physical vessel as well as your emotional self. You know, with that hedonist clarified by the 5 of Wands reversed, it's like your soul is actively moving away from drama and bickering and competition and conflict and chaos and, you know, office politics, people undermining you, environments where you constantly have to defend yourself or prove yourself or mediate tensions or smooth things over and just keep the peace. Even if that's something you're really, really good at, because you might be gifted at that, Pal 1. But you are not meant to have to do it all the time. Part of what feeds your soul is maintaining your own peace first and foremost. And this is where I want to be really nuanced, because I can already hear the little voices in people's heads going, well, work is an obligation, isn't it? Like, most of us, if we were millionaires, would choose not to work in that stereotypical sense, because we live in a material world. We live under capitalism. We need money to survive. I get it. But that's why this message is so important for you. The kind of work that feeds your soul is the thing that if you were a millionaire, billionaire, whatever, you would still do it. You'd still choose it because it gives you meaning. It gives you something. It feels meaningful because it feels good and because it lights you up. And I keep getting this image, you know, don't take it literally, but it's almost like the energy of someone who is immensely privileged. I'm not saying that is you. I'm just using this to describe what I mean. Like, born into a rich family, or, you know, they have a wealthy spouse and they technically don't have to work, but they do because they genuinely love what they do. So the vibe isn't frantic, it isn't desperate, it isn't like, oh, if I don't perform perfectly, I'm ruined. It's more like, I'm doing this because I want to. You know, that rich person, if they are self-employed, they get to choose their hours. Or if they're working somewhere else and they get fired, they're kind of like, well, oh well, I don't really need this job. Again, I'm not saying that is your literal situation, but energetically you are meant to feel that kind of ease, like you're not constantly fretting, and it's like the work feels chosen and it doesn't feel forced. And that headiness card, it's given me a very Taurian kind of vibe. I know we've got Gemini coming through, but some of you might also have Taurus placements that could be relevant, or Taurus Gemini overlap. It's this Empress energy actually. I know we haven't got the Empress coming through on the tarot, but I am getting Empress energy, like an Empress on a throne, unbothered, well moisturized, luxurious, comfortable, thriving. Because like with cinnamon swirls are not required for survival, right? Well, maybe they are for some of you, debatable, but for the most part, they're an added extra, right? Like a treat, something you get because you're like, I deserve it. And part of your purpose is that, not in terms of like relentless overconsumption for the sake of it. I don't want this to be an advert for endless consumption, but just as a reminder that you are allowed to have nice things that make life easier and smoother. You are allowed to be comfortable. You're actually meant to be comfortable, pal one. Because let's talk about that shadow side actually of the hedonism for a second, just so we are clear. Hedonism gone wrong is like the 1% hoarding wealth, you know, billionaires on private jets, extravagant everything, taking and taking and taking, depleting the earth, exploiting people and giving absolutely nothing back. You know, pleasure at the expense of everyone else. That is the shadow. And that's not what I'm getting for you. Your soul won't be given this purpose if it was about enjoying yourself at everyone else's expense. This feels more like when you are relaxed and you're safe and you're rested and you're comfortable, when your needs are met and you've got a little bit of extra space for joy, that is when you are most in alignment and most nourished, because you are meant to enjoy the world and you're also meant to make it better. And I know there's that quote, like, there's no ethical consumption under capitalism. And I do agree with that to an extent. I think there's nuance though, because we all have to consume something to exist. But there is a huge difference between, you know, flying on a private jet 365 days a year just because you can, and catching a flight sometimes for work that actually gives back, or it helps people, or it has this meaningful impact. But the point is, you are not here just to take up space and deplete resources. You're here to experience joy and contribute something real at the same time. And while I'm talking about this, I'm called to give another example. And I'm so sorry. I know I keep saying I won't go off on these tangents, but it's me. So I have to do this. But there's all this kind of discourse online about needs versus wants. And a lot of people I notice being very morally superior in comment sections, like, oh, you know, the climate is all your fault, Tracy, from down the road, because you eat meat, or you bought a dress from Shein, or you use the plastic straw. Tracy, you are single-handedly responsible for the climate catastrophe. And that's where it gets silly, because, you know, people don't know anyone else's circumstances. There's a difference between an ultra-rich influencer doing £300 Shein hauls every week and promoting it with zero accountability. There's a difference between that and Tracy from down the road buying a couple of dresses that fit her for her new job because that's what she can afford. So this idea that, like, oh, if I don't need to do this, nobody needs to do it, is not only reductive, it's often just like a huge lack of empathy. Especially, I notice this a lot with like adaptive measures. And I'm someone who personally, I know what it's like to be able-bodied. And I also now know what it's like to have a very limiting condition. I know what it's like to be disabled. And I have seen people refer to things as like lazy or as overconsumption that are literally life-saving for somebody who is disabled. Like pre-chopped vegetables, for example. People are like, oh, just chop it yourself. Nobody needs that. And I just don't personally think we can say what somebody else needs if we do not live in their body. Like, what is a need versus a want? That is going to differ from person to person. And I'm mentioning this because a lot of people who have that mindset of like, oh, nobody needs that because I don't need it. I am somebody who grew up without a car. Nobody in my family drove. And if I say something to them like, well, technically you don't need that car to get to work, like you could walk, and they will respond and they will say, well, that is absolutely ridiculous. Like, if I were to walk to work, what is usually like a half an hour drive would take me 2 hours walking. And I'm like, yeah, you are so close to getting it. So close. Like, have you considered that what takes you 5 minutes might take someone with a disability so much longer? Like, you don't know everybody's grip strength, their motor function, the time and energy they have, that they might be managing pain. They might be just focused on survival. But because you can do it, you assume everyone can, and therefore it's not needed, and everyone else is lazy. And there is a reason I'm mentioning this, pal one. My point is, for you, is nobody gets to decide what is a need for somebody else, especially if you've not spent a day in their shoes. And you, pile one, you don't have to feel guilty for having nice things that help you function. So whether it's a fancy coffee machine that makes your morning easier, or it's just giving yourself an extra couple of hours in bed because your body needs rest, you are not only allowed, you are meant to honour what makes your life more bearable and more enjoyable. And that links directly into that beauty sleep card. You know, rest is absolutely highlighted here as part of your purpose. Your soul is saying success is not sleepless nights over work. It's not, you know, back-to-back 12-hour shifts. It's not skipping lunch breaks because that's the grind. That's not success for you. What feeds your soul, pile one, is adequate rest. It's sleep, it's hydration, movement, emotional fulfillment, and enough money to cover your needs with some wiggle room. So you're comfortable and not constantly scraping by. That is the kind of abundance you guys are meant to have. On that hedonist note as well, I keep getting this image of those like really lavish celebrity parties. And just to be clear, I'm not talking about shady parties, okay? I'm not talking about the kind of parties that Netflix make documentaries about. Not those parties. I mean more like, you know, galas or events that only exist when someone has access to some pretty extravagant resources, like champagne flowing, people doing acrobatics, yachts, things that the average person never really gets to experience. There's a reason I'm giving this example, by the way. I'm not saying you throw those kinds of parties. The energy I'm getting here, it's not about like showing off wealth, like maybe some of those people do, but it's more like you are showing people something they've never had access to before. That is your energy. And it's kind of like this inventor energy, this discovery energy that's coming up in this pile. There's something about you that makes people feel like, wow, I have never seen anything like this. And it's like once your idea, your work, or your space exists, the right people gravitate towards it. And not everyone gets an invite. And that's important because a lot of people will want to be part of it. It's kind of like FOMO, but in a really positive way. Like you're creating something so fun and so interesting and so different that people naturally want to lean in. And a more, I guess, like down to earth example of this energy coming through, it's like, do you know when you go to an event and you get sat on one end of the table, and on that end of the table, the conversation is fine, but maybe it's a little bit flat, or the people around you are talking about things that you can't relate to, you can't really engage in the conversation, so you're kind of just sat there, and then you overhear the other end of the table absolutely cracking up and, you know, deep diving into really cool ideas and joking around and really vibing and just clearly having the best time. And you feel like, oh, actually, like, I kind of want to sit with those guys. I actually belong over there. I get on with those people like a house on fire. They are more my vibe. That's the energy you bring. Like you yourself, you make things feel alive and interesting. You create the kind of space people want to sit at because it's fun, it's stimulating, and there's room to actually be yourself as well. Not everyone will be part of that group, but the ones who are, they really get it. And I'm getting a very receptive kind of abundance energy here too. Like, yes, you guys can work hard, but you work best when you honor your ebbs and flows. You are not meant to live in like constant output, which is why there's another thing I'm getting. Like, honestly, some of you guys might benefit from looking into your human design type if you've ever been curious. I'm not an expert on human design. Like, I'm not pretending to know everything. But learning that I was a projector really did explain a lot for me. You know, it helped me understand why I would try to keep up with everyone else and I'd try to push through, and then I'd always crash and burn. So projector energy, this doesn't have to be you, but just to put it in like a very simple way, it's not designed for constant output. It's not doing every day like a machine. It's more about like more focused work, sometimes more penetrating work. It's better for guiding and directing and improving systems. It's better at the one-to-one work or like leadership through insight rather than constantly just like churning things out. So I'm not saying you have to be a projector, but you might relate to that. And I know the projector type is about 20% of the population. It's not the rarest type, but it's not the most common. There is a rarer type, and I think the rare type is the reflector. But yeah, I'm just saying that because sometimes if you are one of those different types, you might feel wrong in comparison to people around you in terms of how you operate. You might feel like it's a flaw with you, but fundamentally, you operate differently. Like, if you feel like you can't keep up with the people around you, then there might be a deeper reason for that. That's all I'm saying. Even if you're not a projector or anything like that, I think there's still a message here about just operating differently to the people around you and that not being a flaw. Because I think some of you might have told yourself, like, oh, I thrive in chaos, I thrive in fast-paced environments. And I'm not saying that's never true. Some people genuinely do, and we need those people. you know, those people who can be all hands on deck, responding to chaos, dealing with crisis. But I also know that sometimes we confuse thriving with, this feels familiar, this is what I know, so this is what I should be doing. Like, if you're used to being the mediator, you're used to being the calm one, or the person who can respond quickly to chaos, or who can diffuse tensions and just keep things moving, you might think that that's what you're meant to do. But long term, it can lead to burnout, or it can lead to illness. And when I say burnout, I don't mean it as this like airy-fairy concept. You know, burnout is a very physical thing. Stress is a very physical thing. Not listening to your limits can have real consequences. I know that firsthand because I'm someone who, if you don't know, I feel like I talk about it all the time, so I don't want to go on about it. But a couple of years ago, I kind of ran myself into the ground. I ended up with a chest infection that turned into pneumonia, and I have since ended up with a lifelong disability. So these things have tangible consequences. And I'm not saying that to scare you. I'm not saying that to fearmonger or say that will happen to you, pal one. But I never thought it would happen to me either. I thought I could just push through and things would be fine. But that's not always the case. But yeah, it feels like here there is a message about your body being part of your purpose, and you are meant to work with it, not against it. So the work that feeds your soul is that happy middle ground, you know, not boring and stagnant, but not 1,000 miles an hour all the time with a sense of urgency that is actually false. Like, and I know some jobs actually are urgent, like when it comes to jobs where time is of the essence and you are saving lives. But in many corporate companies, there's like a false sense of urgency, like, oh, Bob hasn't got his spreadsheet and the shareholders and oh my god, everything's on fire. And actually, like, it's not that deep, and you don't need to run yourself into the ground trying to do everything for everyone and making yourself ill when that workplace could replace you in a day. Like, let Bob live without his spreadsheet. Bob is not more important than your health, you know? You're not meant to feel like going into the office is life or death. You are not meant to be yelled at by customers all day. You're not meant to be pressured into doing overtime or carrying the whole team. You're not meant to be in an environment that is perpetually understaffed and overwhelmed and watched and micromanaged. You are not meant to constantly be having things sprung on you, like thrown in at the deep end all the time. Ritual is very strong here, you know, that fine joy in rhythm. You need structure that supports you. You need to know when you clock off, and you need to actually clock off. You need the breaks, you need the breathing room. You need work that doesn't demand your entire soul as payment. And I'm seeing that you guys would either do beautifully working for yourself, or just in a role where you have autonomy and you are treated like an adult, not micromanaged, not surveyed, and not policed. So for some of you, remote work could be an absolute game changer, because it's like you could wake up and have breakfast and have a shower and sit down with your coffee and log in without the stress of, you know, commuting or skipping meals, trying to get to work on time, like rushing and arriving already feeling depleted, because your nervous system matters here. You're meant to do something that supports it. And I also want to say something about flexibility, because I know I've been talking about rhythm and routine, and that can sound like a contradiction, putting flexibility in with that. But for you, it's about curating a routine that actually works with you, and it leaves some room for that flexibility. And I'll use myself as an example here. So I have ADHD, which is, I'm sure, shocking to absolutely no one, and routine really does help me function. But I also have a compounding disability that means not every single day can look the same. So it's about honouring those ebbs and flows. Just because you can take on 10 things today doesn't mean you'll be able to do that tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow you can only manage 2 things, and that's okay. What feeds your soul is having the autonomy to adjust, rather than just being expected to perform at the exact same level every single day. You thrive when you are allowed to work with your energy and not against it. And there's also very much like a work hard, play hard vibe to this pile too. It's in a healthy way though. Like, you can work hard, but then you can really celebrate. So you can go and treat yourself. You can take that holiday. You go and do the spa break. Or you are in a workplace where if you work with a team, the team actually like each other, and the annual party is genuinely fun. And maybe it's kind of extravagant too, because you guys are celebrating what you achieve. You're not just like trying to push through, trying to survive. And if you're in leadership even, I can see you guys being a really generous leader. Like, you know, my team deserves the best Christmas bonus, or come on this exciting business trip with me, or like, we're doing this properly. Because for you, pleasure is not selfish, it's part of sustainability. Now this luck card showing up with the Fool, I think that's really sweet, because this says to me you guys are meant to have lucky breaks, and the universe is supporting you to try things. You guys are meant to take little leaps, you're meant to explore, you're meant to experiment. And sometimes it's like you don't always know what you're doing at first, but that's okay. That's part of what feeds your soul, is being curious. You know, some of you could feel like you've hopped from job to job to job, or you've tried lots of different things and you've been worried you've got it wrong, or you're like, I should know what I'm doing by now, but actually that discovery is part of your path. You know, self-discovery is literally here. It feeds your soul to explore, and the Fool tells me that when you do this, you will land on your feet. So if you are in a place where you're thinking of starting something new, you know, freelancing, your own business, a side project, a pivot from what you're doing now, this is your sign that you don't need to know everything up front. You will find your way because you are meant to learn by doing, and the right opportunities tend to meet you when you make the move. And going back to the human design thing, there's a thing about projectors. Again, I'm not saying you have to be a projector, but it's about like having to wait for the invitation. And when some people first hear about that, they feel like that's quite disempowering, because they feel like, oh, so I'm just waiting around for somebody to give me permission of what I should do. And that's not what it's about. It's not like sit in your house and wait for permission. It's more like you can put yourself out there where you can be found, and the right people will recognize you. I'm also hearing the phrase build it and they will come. So it's about not having to fight to be seen by everyone, because not everyone is meant to see you and connect with you. What feeds your soul, pal one, is being seen by the right people, being appreciated, being valued, being invited into the spaces where your insight matters and your voice actually carries weight. And as a projector, I will use YouTube as an example, because nobody invited me to make this channel. I chose it. But the invitation aspect comes through in the engagement. You know, the people who my messages resonate for, who comment, who ask for topics, who like the video, who message me to say like, this really resonated, or I get what you're saying. That is the invitation. You know, you are not meant for everyone, and that's okay. You are meant for the ones who get it. And in your work, it's the same. You don't want to be in rooms where you have to bite your tongue or suppress your anger, swallow your truth, play office politics, keep false peace. You guys want real communication and honest communication. You want rooms where everyone gets to speak and be heard, and people aren't like fighting over each other. And that's where that Gemini energy comes in, because Gemini, clarified by the Ace of Swords, is like your soul thrives on truth and clarity and communication and learning and curiosity and mental stimulation. You need work where your mind is alive, where there's always something new to learn, always a new angle, always a new idea. It feeds your soul to be in a field where there's always something new to learn. So if you're a makeup artist, as just one example, it's about learning new techniques that are becoming popular, getting new products, trying out new styles. If you're a therapist, it's about doing the research and learning new therapeutic approaches as they evolve, new ways of supporting people. Whatever the field is, it can't feel stagnant. You need to feel like you are constantly discovering and refining and expanding your knowledge. One thing about Gemini is that duality, and you know, this could relate to like if you're somebody who is used to multitasking, if you're somebody who's good at it. I think there's a message in there that says, yes, you're good at it, but it doesn't mean you should have to multitask constantly. You know, Gemini can handle loads, but if you guys are forced to juggle too much, you can become a little bit scattered, a little bit brain foggy, a little bit overwhelmed. So you guys need boundaries, you need breathing room. You know, if you're in a busy group environment, like if you're a teacher, for example, you need those designated free periods. You need to have your planning time. You need to have that space where you step back. You know, even if you can handle chaos, you are not meant to live inside it all the time. You're meant to have that rhythm, that grounding thing, that ritual that you can go back to. I do think it would feed your soul to be in a field where things are in motion, where there's ongoing learning, you know, things like medicine, science, anything with constant new breakthroughs, or anything creative where you're always exploring new ideas and concepts. Routine matters to you, but it's not about stagnation. It's like you do want that stable rhythm, but within a world that grows. So it could be the same job, but working with different people. It could be the same craft, but with new projects. It's like the same structure, but with fresh ideas. And with Beauty Sleep and with the Page of Pentacles, I feel like you guys who chose Pile 1, I'm getting you need to let things marinate. Like you need to rest so you can come back sharp. And that paired with the Gemini energy, even if you're not a Gemini, there's this permission here for duality. And it's saying you guys are allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to step back and say, you know, I need time to think about this. It actually feeds your soul when you're not pressured into snap decisions or you're not put on the spot. You work best when you are given the space to weigh things up, to be able to look at the pros and cons and then come to a decision that feels genuinely right for you at a brain level and at a soul level too, rather than being like shoehorned into something just because somebody else wants an immediate answer. You may be someone who tends to absorb energy like a sponge, especially if you're around people all day, and rest is not optional for you. It's part of your magic and it's part of your productivity. There's also a message coming through about passive income or royalties here. There's something about like you do the work and you put it out there and the rewards sometimes come later. So it's like you might plant seeds in January and then get the results in December. And a tangible example of this could be like a student who you taught 10 years ago, if you're a teacher coming back years later and telling you like, oh my God, you changed my life, you were the best teacher. Or it could be someone reviewing your product and posting photos, but you've already made the product, like you've already put the effort in and somebody only reviews it months later. It could be your book becoming popular a few years after you've wrote it and going viral and, you know, people reading your book and saying that it really mattered. That kind of impact, the long-lasting impact, really feeds your soul. It's not about constant output, it's not chasing validation, it's just putting something out, resting, taking a step back and letting the right people find it in the right time. And that self-discovery card with the Tower reversed, it's about the quiet collapse of a system that hasn't been working. So some of you, it feels like some of you are here because you've tried the stable option or you've tried to do what everybody else is doing or what everybody says you should do, and it keeps not working. You know, either you burn out, it stagnates, it drains you, or it just feels like a replica of the last thing you did that didn't fit. So the Tower reversed is like you are meant to let the old definition of success collapse. You are meant to try a different way, and that doesn't have to mean a completely new field, although it can do. It might mean a new structure within the same field. Like that teaching example we gave, maybe you love teaching, but the school environment that you're at is just too chaotic. So you pivot into one-on-one tutoring. That's still teaching, it's just in a way that supports your nervous system. That's just one random example, it doesn't have to be that. But yeah, honestly, for some of you, this Tower energy to me, it's giving me inventor energy. I'm getting something about Dragon's Den. It's like you're meant to pull apart an old system and create a new one. A genius brain, that's something I'm getting. It's like you're an idea machine. Innovator energy, it's giving me huge innovator energy. You're meant to be an inventor, something like that. Something you do, it's like, it makes something else obsolete that is coming through because you found a better way, because your mind works differently and you're meant to discover what other people haven't seen yet. That's coming through really strongly. So overall, Pal 1, I keep coming back to this, you know, what feeds your soul is pleasure, yes, but pleasure with integrity. It's comfort, but it's also with purpose. It's rest and having a very supportive rhythm, and it's work that feels chosen, but with some spontaneity. It's also work where you are not afraid to speak up, where your voice matters, where it feels like you're being appreciated and accepted and invited by the right people, and you don't have to fight to be heard. And you are not here to grind yourself into dust. You are here to live well, and in living well, you actually have more to give. And honestly, Power 1, if your purpose doesn't feel like a treat, if it doesn't feel a little bit like an expertly glazed cinnamon swirl, I would be questioning it for you, because you are meant to enjoy your life, Power. Like, that is the bottom line here. You're meant to enjoy it. You're meant to be having fun with your work. That's a big part of it. So that is what I'm getting for you, Power 1, and that's where I'm going to leave you today, my loves. Thank you so much for being here and for spending your time with me. I really appreciate you listening, and I hope this reading brought you some clarity, comfort, or maybe just a little sense of being seen. If you feel called to do so, the best ways to support a small channel like mine are to like, comment, hype, share, and subscribe. Only if it feels right for you, there is no pressure. But on a personal note, I really appreciate it. Please feel free to share what resonates. Even if it's just leaving me an emoji or telling me which power you picked, everything helps, and it genuinely means a lot to me. It really helps me to know that you guys are out there and that you see me and that we are actually connecting in this space. So thank you for your energy and for your presence and your kindness. I am sending you lots of love, and I will see you at the next reading, Power 1. Hi, Pal 2 Collective. If you chose the Cozy Witch Tarot and you chose the Muffin sticker and you chose Pal 2, you are in the correct place. Welcome to your reading, friends. If you would like a full breakdown regarding everything this reading will entail, please check out my introduction. I do go through absolutely everything there. I will also leave some details in the pinned comment below for your reference. I recommend checking at least one of those out so you know what to expect from this reading today. Just a little reminder, if you have not seen my latest community post, please take a moment to check it out. One of the most talented readers in this space, Psychic Siren Tarot, has sadly lost access to her main channel after it was hacked. She is a beautiful soul and I am truly devastated for her. I've actually linked her second channel in my community post, so if you feel called, please go and have a look and just help raise her up, because I think she could really do with the support and the love right now. If you get a chance to do that, thank you so much. I just know she would really appreciate it. With that said, today's reading is titled, What Kind of Work Truly Feeds Your Soul? Career, Passion and Purpose. This reading is all about nourishment, the kind that sustains you long term. We're looking at what lights you up, what you're naturally good at, and the type of work in the broadest sense of the word that helps you feel aligned, purposeful and alive. And honestly, at the heart of it, we are asking, what does your soul love to gobble up like an expertly glazed baked good? So for some of you, this may show up through career or creative pursuits. For others, it might speak more to passion, purpose, or the way you show up in the world more generally. There's no pressure here to be anything. This is just about understanding what actually feeds you rather than drains you. So with that said, and without any further hesitation, let's have a look at what we pulled for you today, pal 2. So from the Archetypes Oracle, we have got Child Divine. I love this card so much. Light attributes. Innocence, purity, and redemption suggests a special connection with the divine. Shadow attribute, an inability to defend oneself against negative forces. And clarifying Child Divine, we have got strength. It takes great strength to be soft. I'm just going to move your muffin to the side actually so we can focus on the cards. Forgot to do that. From the Woodland Warden's Oracle, we have got the Crow and Dogwood Intelligence. Okay, smarty pants. And clarifying intelligence, we have got the Seven of Swords. Are your actions really as selfless as you think? From the Hecate Oracle, we have got Seer, use your third eye. Okay, we've got some psychics who chose pal 2. Maybe you guys are readers yourselves. Clarifying Seer, we have the Page of Cups. So let yourself be continually surprised by this thing called life. From the Wild Muse Oracle, we have got your tribe, your vibe. And clarifying that, we have got the King of Swords. We can all learn important things from one another. The typewriter is standing out to me. Maybe some of you guys are writers, maybe you're authors. That could be relevant for somebody. From the Pills of Wisdom Oracle, we have Deep Mysteries. Trust that even if you don't understand the reasons for this challenge, believe it is guiding you towards divine growth and evolution. So shall it be. And clarifying that, we have the Page of Pentacles. When life gives you lemons, make enchanted lemonade. From the Blooming Cats Tarot, we have got Leo, creative, loyal leader, inflexible, jealous, prideful. The dates July 23rd to August 22nd could be relevant for you guys. Some of you could be fire signs. The sun could be a prominent placement in your chart. Your major arcana card is strength. Well, we got strength, so that makes sense. Peridot and Carnelian could be relevant. The colours yellow and orange. The numbers 1, 3 and 4. I'm also getting 5. It doesn't say it on the card, but the 5th house is normally associated with Leo. Flowers, sunflower and marigold, so they could be relevant. And clarifying the Leo card, we have got the Tower. Get ready, things are about to get shaken up. Okay, don't panic. I've got you. I know what that is. You have nothing to be afraid of, pal 2, because you are fearless. Before we move into the main reading, I just want to go through some number confirmations for you guys, pal 2. As always, these do not have to resonate for this to be your pile, so please don't feel the need to force it. But if they do resonate, you can take them as extra confirmation. So the numbers coming through for this pile are 1, 3 and 4. I mentioned 5 as well if you want to take that. These numbers might show up for you as a date, a birthday, a month, a year, an age, a life stage, a life path number, an angel number or synchronicity you've been seeing a lot of, an astrological house, or the sign associated with that house. If these numbers apply to you in another way that I haven't mentioned, feel free to take that as extra confirmation too. These are just little nudges. And I also just want to clarify something about this Leo card. These cards are not intended to box you in. You do not have to be a Leo for this to be your pile. This card is more here to represent the energy you're currently in, as well as the strengths and traits associated with the Leo archetype. So it's more about an archetype. So, you know, creativity, warmth, leadership, visibility, heart-led expression, courage. Those could be relevant things. That said, if you do have strong Leo placements, especially Leo, Sun, Moon or Rising, or strong 5th house energy, you can absolutely take that as extra confirmation. With that said, let's get into the reading itself. Because pal 2, alright, I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to say it. You are here to do some big work. And you probably know that deep down, even if you guys are reluctant sometimes to think of yourself as like important in this lifetime. I feel like your soul has always known it. This is huge energy. And, you know, before we even go card by card, I want to say this straight away. The work that feeds your soul feels deeply spiritual in nature and definitely divinely guided. Now, when I say spiritual, I do not mean that you have to be sat here doing tarot on YouTube, okay? Like, it doesn't have to be that. Although I would not be surprised if a good chunk of this pile are, you know, my self-identified psychics, readers, intuitives, healers, absolutely. But it doesn't have to be anything outwardly woo-woo or even woo-woo adjacent. You know, you could be in a field that's very grounded or rooted in science, for instance, and you could still carry out your work through a spiritual lens because it's about the way you approach it. It's about the intention behind it and that connection to something larger. That is the point. There's this divine thread running through everything in this pile. So let's start by looking at your core soul imprint, because this first archetype tells me so much about who you are underneath everything. So let's address that first. So with this child divine and strength, this is very much giving like open channel energy. The child divine is very closely related to the magical and innocent child archetype, but it's got this extra layer of redemption. It's about innocence and purity and redemption and these godlike qualities. And I know that sounds kind of dramatic, but, you know, Leo's coming up, so maybe we're meant to be dramatic in this pile, but that's literally the vibe. And one thing I want to say as well is that parts of your life, for you guys, pile 2, may have genuinely felt like a test of faith and strength and endurance, like how much you could withstand before cracking. And that's toughened you up. It's toughened you up in ways you didn't know were possible, and it's made you emotionally resilient in a way that not many other people may be able to relate to. And maybe there were points where you kind of wore a mask of toughness to protect something very vulnerable underneath. But at the core of it, there's always been this knowing that you are a child of the divine. You are worthy of more than you've sometimes been given, and there's a mission to all of this. So no matter where you go or who you're with, it's as though you carry that with you, and it cannot be taken away. It can never be taken away, even if there were phases where the connection felt a little bit quieter, or maybe there were times that you felt lost or you weren't as tapped in. It never fully left. The signal might have gone weak for a period of time, but the connection has always been there. And I'm getting this imagery really, really clearly right now. It's like when you came into the world, you arrived with this strong spiritual connection and this instinctive sense of mission or purpose. It's like you had this intrinsic light where you came to Earth and you were like, I'm going to come to Earth and I'm going to spread light and I'm going to spread joy and I'm going to show people what's possible. And you did naturally do that. You had this bright, spellbinding aura. You know, that definition of like, they light up a room, but in a soul kind of way. And regardless of whether you have Leo placements or not, it's like you absolutely carry the benevolent Leo vibe, you know, the light side of Leo, the confidence, the compassion, the generosity, the self-worth, the warmth, the radiance. You were kind, you were sensitive, you were sincere, and it felt like all you wanted was to make the world a better place by just being caring and just being genuine. And the important thing that I want to mention here is that other people could see this, even if you couldn't always see it in yourself, or even if nobody said it out loud. People did pick up on this. They knew the power was there. And with power comes responsibility. I'm hearing the phrase, to whom much is given, much is tested. I'm hearing that really strongly because it's as though the world recognized the light and some people or situations in the world wanted to snuff it out. And I don't mean that like as literally. I'm not saying like everyone in the world is bad and you're the only good person and everyone is out to get you, because that's not true. And that's very overdramatic, actually. You know, there are plenty of souls who come in like you did, wanting to do light work, wanting to like raise the vibration. And they also felt sort of knocked down at every turn. But maybe growing up, you didn't meet any of those people personally, or not many of them at least. Those connections were few and far between, so it could have felt very lonely. And again, I just want to emphasize, I'm not saying that people around you were all bad. It's more like a lot of them, there was this sense of like they'd given up, so they'd lost their connection to their own divinity. and they'd become cynical, maybe desensitized, resigned. It's given me this example of being like a fresh graduate in a new workplace. Like, you come in and you're full of enthusiasm and you're wanting to solve problems and change the system, and then the older cynical colleagues are all like rolling their eyes at you like, yeah, you know, good luck with that, mate. Like, we've tried but nothing changes. You're being naive. Nothing's going to change about the system. It's that sort of a vibe. And it's like people trying to steal your joy, your whimsy, making you feel like you're too innocent, too idealistic, too head in the clouds. Or even worse, you know, maybe making you feel like you were being egotistical for believing that you could make a difference and trying to put you down due to that. And for some of you, it wasn't just doubt. I'm getting for some of you, it felt like a humiliation ritual. And what's funny, because you chose the muffin sticker, it made me think of the scene in Mean Girls that's like, would you like your muffin buttered? So I'm getting this sense of like, you could have dealt with these cliquey, mean, high school-y type behaviors, not just in school, but in workplaces, in communities, you know, whispering, frenemies, fake niceness, eye rolls, the thing where people are like, oh, let's invite pal 2, but it's all a big joke, or it's like, let's treat them like they're weird, you know, subtle undermining, people acting like you said something strange when you showed an ounce of confidence, or people being sweet to your face and very shady behind your back, that kind of thing. And it's always the traits they mock that threaten them. That's the common thread, because you being in touch with your divinity makes it obvious that they are not in touch with theirs. So this pile is absolutely for anyone who's ever been labelled too sensitive, like you were treated as though it was cringy or weird to care about things. And I've experienced this too, and I'm getting a specific example now. This is a very random example. It doesn't have to relate to you at all. It's not even about what the specific thing is. It's more about how other people treat you in relation to something. So this is just to ground it. So I think I've mentioned before, like, I'm vegetarian. I would say like 95% plant-based. And to be clear, you know, I'm not against individuals who eat meat. I'm against the system and the cruelty, but I'm not against people. Like, do what you got to do. I'm not here to blame anyone for what they need to do to survive. And most conversations about it are normal and civil. You know, many of my friends eat meat. Many of my friends aren't vegetarian. And usually, you know, that's fine. We can get along. We can share recipes. We can talk about what we like, what we don't like in terms of food, and, you know, all good. But there's always been that subset of people who get weirdly defensive and have tried to get reactions out of me in the past. So I'm thinking of, like, even when I was back in school and I'd say I was vegetarian, I'd get people like waving like meat in my face to try to get a reaction out of me, almost like, oh, like, are you scared of this? Like, really childish stuff. And I'm like, Sandra, I am not scared of your bargain bucket. I'm scared of the callousness of inhumane systems and what humans are capable of, but I'm not frightened of your chicken drumstick, Sandra. Like, please chill. Well, then you get these people who will loudly declare how much they love meat, and it's kind of like they're glitching out, like trying to override any critical thought. And then if you respond very calmly to them and you're like, okay, like, good for you, what do you want me to say? Suddenly you're too sensitive. And it's like, babe, the call is coming from inside the house. If you are feeling some kind of way about your life choices, if you are feeling the need to prove a point, that is your stuff to process. Like, I'm fine. I know I'm not responsible for your choices. I'm just responsible for my own. And then if we use that example, there would be people who would ask why, because they were genuinely curious, and that's fine. Like, why do you choose to be vegetarian? And then there would be people who would ask why, but I could very much tell it wasn't in good faith. Like, they just wanted to argue or to make me feel some type of way about it. And, you know, when I would just try to keep it simple and just say, like, oh, I'm just a big animal lover, so, like, it just felt right for me. It's almost like I was punished for that by these people. Like, oh, that's really weird. I don't really get it. That's too much. Like, made to feel like you were the odd one out for caring about something. And it almost reminds me of, like, I don't know if this is even still a thing, but, like, back in the early 2000s, do you know when everyone used to relate to everything as, like, that's gay, as an insult? Like, fellas, is it gay to care about other living beings? I mean, I am actually queer, so maybe it is a little bit gay. But the point is, you shouldn't be treated like you're weird or weak for having compassion. That is my point. It doesn't have to be that example for you. We all, like, care about different things. But the point is, we care and we have compassion, and there's nothing wrong with that. And some of you, it's like because of that, because of being ostracized or punished or made to feel strange, at certain times you might have learned to shut parts of yourself down. You didn't fully give up, but you maybe disconnected from your sensitivity at times because it felt so overwhelming. It's like you came here as this raw nerve, and at some point you learned you couldn't be that close to the surface all the time without getting hurt. So for some of you, this showed up as like apathy, that feeling of like, what's the point? Or I don't care, or nothing changes anyway, so why bother? Or even engaging with behaviours you knew didn't really align for you, and having some degree of like cognitive dissonance between what you believe and how you're actually living. But what feeds your soul, pal, too, is your profound connection to divinity. It's your compassion, it's your sincerity, your openness, and your light. And your mission, the work you're meant to do, it involves redemption somehow. And I don't just mean your personal redemption arc, although that could be part of it, but I mean it as you offering the world around you the chance at redemption. Because you have this understanding that people aren't just inherently good or evil for the most part. You know, we're not perfect and we all make mistakes, but we all carry divinity. Some people are aware of it and some people feel a little bit further from it, but that potential exists. Your work involves helping people see that potential in themselves. And it's about saying like, yes, there is cruelty, yes, there's pain in this world, but I believe we can make the world better than we found it. I believe we each have light, and I believe we can create change. And that's why it feeds your soul to glow fully. I'm getting glow fully, not to be the brightest in the room, but to say like, we can all be bright together. You can be bright too. Let me show you the way. There's definitely a mentoring energy to this. It's like you inspire people to be the best versions of themselves. You help them stop living in shame and start recognizing their own power. I'm getting a really random confirmation about gospel music here. I'm also hearing the song Amazing Grace, but specifically the lyric that's like, I once was lost, but now I'm found. So for someone that could be literal, like returning to church, finding and accepting church, reconnecting spiritually. Doesn't have to be a religious thing, it could just be in a spiritual sense. Or it could be symbolic, finding yourself again because you were never truly lost, but maybe the connection went quiet for a period of time and now it's back. And yeah, I'm seeing this almost like a scene playing out in my head of your soul incarnating onto earth and the divine beings, whatever you believe in, kind of watching you and speaking to each other and saying like, they've got their work cut out for them, haven't they? And the divine is just like, yep, because you came in seeing only good. And the mission was never just, you know, go down to earth and tell everyone life is amazing. It was go down, experience what it is to be human, pain and all, and still believe in love and compassion and redemption. That is part of the work. Okay, so now I want to talk about your mind, your discernment, and why you guys are probably perceived as a threat in certain environments. So with the Crow and Dogwood intelligence and the Seven of Swords, you have insane discernment, pal, too, and it feeds your soul when you're allowed to use it. You've probably always been the type who can walk into a room and immediately understand things about that room. You know, the people in it, the systems, the hierarchies at play, you can understand that without anyone saying a word. You guys probably have excellent pattern recognition. You penetrate past surface level social dynamics like it's nothing. You see through fakeness, you see through deception and passive aggressiveness and disingenuous behavior, and that is one of your greatest gifts. And it's also why it's been threatening to certain people and certain institutions, because the thing is, a lot of people do not want to be seen clearly. They want you to swallow whatever line they're feeding to you. And when they can tell that you don't buy it, either because you say something or just because it's written all over your face, you become a threat. And that's where that ostracized feeling can come in, because they know you know. That's something I'm hearing. They know you know. Even if you're trying to keep the peace, even if you're trying to fit in, even if you're masking, because, you know, yeah, we all have to get by and we have to hold down jobs and sometimes play the corporate game a little bit. And if you've ever had to do that, they can still tell, they still know you know. The knowing is intrinsic. So this could have shown up as just one example, managers saying like, oh, we're like a family here, we care about our staff, whilst treating all their staff terribly. And you're like, the actions aren't lining up to what you're saying. Or it could be people talking to you being overly flattering and chatty, but you can tell that they don't really care and they just want something from you. Or the concept of office politics, you know, people at the bottom rung get spoken to like crap while everybody sucks up to the boss. That hierarchy bullshit, it does not feed your soul to be around fake environments where you have to be like cunning or strategic just to be respected. Because at your core, you speak in the language of love and truth and integrity, and these types of corrupt systems undermine that. It can also create this internal conflict where you're spending too much energy on concepts like, you know, how should I act according to this hierarchy? Can I say this? Will I be punished for saying this? Should I tiptoe around this person's ego because they control my salary? And your soul is like, can we just skip the bullshit, please? I just want to speak the raw truth. And it's not that you want to be rude, it's that you want real connection, you want depth, you want to break down the walls, you want to jump straight past the like, how was your weekend? Yeah, it was fine. How was yours? Yeah, it was good. Stuff, and into something meaningful. Like, Sandra, I do not care that you rewatch Love Island for the 3rd time. I want to know your childhood trauma. I want to hear about your moon sign. I want to know why you work the way you do. That's the vibe. And yeah, of course, like, small talk has a place. You know, I'll send voice notes to my friends talking about any old bullshit because sometimes we need the escapism. So sometimes I'll message them, I'll send them a voice note and I'll be like, oh my god, did you see that episode of Love Island? But then a minute later, I'm like, oh, by the way, I had this soul-crushing dream and I woke up crying. Can you psychoanalyze this for me? And then it's like about a deeper topic as well. So there's balance. But if you're in an environment where vulnerability is taboo and everyone was like, wear that mask forever, that doesn't feed your soul. I'm also hearing a lyric right now, and I've not heard this song in a really long time. It's by Regina Spektor, I think. Is the song... Oh, I can't remember what it's called. I think it might be from the song Hero. I don't know if that is the song title, but it's the bit where she's like, power to the people, but they don't want it, they want pleasure. And that is such a brutal observation about humanity because it points to how many people are caught up in this web of complacency and how that traps us. Like, true power comes with responsibility and it comes with difficult decisions and it comes with accountability. And a lot of people would rather keep the illusion going. Like, they don't want the status quo disrupted. They don't want to look at their power, their complicity, and their fear. And that's painful for you guys to witness because you can see it so clearly. And that's the pain that comes with seeing everything so clearly. And I'm actually thinking as well of the Barbie movie, which I only saw it once. I mean, the recent one when it first came out with Margot Robbie. The bit where everyone's vibing, they're at a party, I think, like dancing, and then the music cuts and Barbie goes like, do you ever think about dying, or something like that. I think that's what she says. I think it is anyway, I've not seen it in a while, but it's something like that, and everyone's like, can you not? Like, where did that come from? That's the kind of thing, like, people who don't want real conversations, who don't want responsibility, who don't want to look at themselves, they find your truth-telling unbearable. They find your depth unbearable. So you get labelled too sensitive or too much, or nobody wants to talk about this now. Nobody wants to hear that because they want the illusion maintained. But part of your mission and part of what feeds your soul is disrupting that status quo. Even if you have had to go through phases where you had to learn to be strategic or play the game or keep quiet for survival because your honesty got you punished, your system is not built for like pretending long term. And I'm getting another really specific example here. Do you know if you have a friend who calls you crying because they finally broke up with their horrible, lying, cheating, dusty partner? They finally seen the light, and then they open up to you about like all the ways this person mistreated them, and they're like, yeah, you know, they treated me terribly, this is it, I'm leaving. And then the next week they're back together, and when you remind them of what they said, you were like, last week you were honest about everything that they've done, and you told me that they cheated on you with your brother, and then they committed tax fraud in your name, and then they fled the country. Like, what do you mean you're back together? And suddenly you're the problem. Suddenly that person's like, why do you have to be so negative? Why can't you just be happy for me? I don't want to hear none of that. And it's like, well, I didn't shag your brother. How is this my fault? But they distance from you because you know the truth, and they know you know, and you won't feed into the delusion because it's out in the open now. That's been a theme for you. It's like you blow the whistle, you name the thing, you are honest, and then you get treated like you are the troublemaker. You might have been punished more overtly or more covertly, but you might have been pushed out and othered. That is the thing. And it's like you've had to learn discernment around who deserves access to your insight because your intelligence is intimidating. You can walk into a system and immediately see what's not working, and you can also see how to fix it. And some people don't want the problem solved because they prefer maintaining that status quo because maybe it benefits them. And honestly, crows are like the perfect symbol for this because crows are so ridiculously intelligent. They know how to problem solve with multiple steps. They know how to plan for future rewards. They're good at facial recognition. They have an insane memory, and even things like mimicry. And that mimicry piece is really interesting to me because you guys may have learned to mimic environments to survive. So that's that masking thing. It's a way of blending to sort of play the game. But what feeds your soul isn't mimicry, it's authenticity. It's using your own voice and not having to echo someone else's beliefs. This pile kind of gives me like gifted child energy too. Even the gifted child to burn out adult pipeline for some, if you are familiar with anything like that. That might not be for everyone, but you're definitely an abstract thinker. You're definitely someone whose brain moves 1,000 miles a minute. I'm getting big Mercury dominant vibes, so Gemini, Virgo, but of course Leo as well. Some of you grasp complex concepts instantly, but a simple concept might need to be explained in a specific way for you to understand it. That might be a more specific message for some people, like complex things are actually easier for you because your brain is so complex. And in terms of being gifted, I guess it depends on whether you had teachers who could actually adapt to you and point out the things you were good at, recognize your gifts. But yeah, there's this sense that you were designed to work out these complex solutions that no one else has ever thought of. So let's move into your intuition and your emotional intelligence, because this is where the seer energy comes in more and more. So yeah, Pal 2, you are very, very gifted at truly seeing people. You pick up on what's going on beneath the surface. You understand people's wants and needs. You are good at reflecting emotions back at them in a way that makes them feel understood. It's like you can articulate what they're experiencing even when they can't quite name it themselves. And this gift feeds your soul when you are in spaces where there's honest energy exchange, where it's human to human, not ego to ego, where people aren't coming at you with armor and projections and bravado. You thrive when there's mutual respect, where you can say, I'll be open with you as long as you're open with me. I'll be honest as long as you're honest. No shady nonsense, no bullshit. And I'm getting that you're probably someone who really despises those hierarchical systems where people, like we mentioned earlier, suck up to the boss and pretend that they can do no wrong, because you just don't operate like that. You'll treat people with respect, whether the CEO or the intern. You don't get off on power, even when you are the one in the position of authority. And I'm getting an example coming through now, like imagine you're in a role like you're a receptionist somewhere. It doesn't have to be that exact job, but just as one example, if someone approaches you with hostility because they've had a bad experience somewhere else, you clock that immediately and you see past that hostility and you recognize like, oh, this person is scared. They didn't get listened to before. Like, so I know that that's why they're treating me like that. It's because they're scared. So you meet them where they're at. You reassure them, you validate them, you bring it back to human to human. You know what people need. But then you do get people who respond with open hostility because they don't want to look at you, because they don't want to look at themselves. So you can be completely on point with what's happening, you can offer that truth gently, and they'll still raise their voice and they'll still argue or deny or push back. And they're like, I'm not scared, you're just pissing me off. And it's like, no, my love, like that is fear. But they'd rather drown out their own soul than face it. So your gift is powerful, but it does need boundaries, because not everyone can receive what you see, even if you're right. And sometimes the more open you are, the more some people clam up because they don't want your openness to invite vulnerability in them. So a big part of what feeds your soul is being in environments where you are appreciated for this, where people seek you out for wisdom rather than punishing you for it. This is why one-on-one work could be really nourishing for you. So things where you are interacting with one client at a time, one point of focus at a time, therapy, coaching, mentoring, spiritual work, human-centered roles, anything where you're helping people open up and make sense of themselves. And you are brilliant at reading what somebody actually needs. You know, do they want solutions or do they just need to vent? You know how to make people feel heard and seen. I'm also thinking of this specific line from a Doja Cat song where she's like, vulnerability earned me a lot of bacon, which is such a ridiculous way to put it. But true for you, Pal 2, it could be anyway. Your vulnerability can make you very successful and it can feed your soul at the same time. Just you being human, being open, being relatable in that deep way. It's not about being this curated version of perfection. It's people recognizing something in you that they recognize in themselves. You guys could be extremely gifted when it comes to articulating complex emotions, whether it be through writing or speaking or storytelling, journalism, poetry, content creation, art, anything where you name that unspoken thing. And it feeds your soul when you allow yourself to be seen in that full capacity, trusting that not everyone will get it, but the ones that do will stick with you. With your tribe, your vibe, and the King of Swords, there's something deeply human about you that people gravitate towards. And I mean that in the best way. It kind of goes back to what we said about vulnerability. It's the power of being human, the power of being willing to be seen as human. Some of you are at different stages with this, so if being seen hasn't always been easy, that's okay. I have a Chiron in Leo, so I understand that. But the magnetism is there. And with that typewriter on the King of Swords in this deck, I wouldn't be surprised, like we said, if many of you are gifted with the written word. Yeah, it can be writing in any form. It could even be something like Instagram captions. Like, truly, you put a name to feelings, you'll labour over a poem for hours trying to find the exact words that nail it. And when you find it, it's like, yes, that's it. And the right people read it and they go like, how did you describe something I've never ever been able to put into words before? That feeds your soul, knowing you've got through to people. And when I say relatable, I don't mean it in a way of you being like an average Joe. I mean relatable in a soulful way. Like, you have logic and you have discernment and you have a good head on your shoulders, but you have heart too, and that's why people trust you, because you're genuine. There's a contrast coming through here. You know, some people claim to be inspirational, but they're actually very out of touch. Their advice can lack empathy and it doesn't translate outside their specific demographic. That's why when we see, you know, the rich white MP giving poor people advice and infantilizing them, acting like they could do it better, whilst clearly having no lived experience of poverty, that's why it gives us the ick when we see things like that. We're like, that person's so out of touch, they have no idea. Or, you know, the fitness influencer who is 120 pounds soaking wet and has been 120 pounds soaking wet since they hit puberty, and they were born into a family of personal trainers, and they're preaching about how simple weight loss is and anyone can do it because it's simple for them, because they've never actually had to do it. That's not inspiring, that's just kind of self-serving. But you're different. Your wisdom transcends differences because you've got depth, you've got experience, and you've got a lot of compassion. You don't shame people to feel superior, and you don't preach to feed your own ego. You genuinely want to help and to better the collective. And you're also willing to listen and learn from others. That humility is so important, pal, too. And, you know, being humble isn't the same as like putting yourself down. It's knowing your worth and also recognizing that everyone has something valuable to give too. And that's why it feeds your soul to attract like-minded people. It's about quality over quantity. If you're in the online space, this could be loyal supporters who show up, who comment, who really connect with what you make. If you're in a workplace, it's a team where honest communication is normal, differences are valued, and nobody's playing these sneaky little games. It's people who see you and accept you, the raw and sincere version of you, and they're like, yeah, we see you and we're right there with you. And I love the fact that everyone has like different coloured hair on the card too. There's something about your tribe celebrates uniqueness. So if you've been in environments where you felt judged for standing out, like you dye your hair purple and everyone else has brown hair and everyone's like, that's weird, why would you do that? This tribe is the opposite. They don't make you smaller to fit in. They make you feel safe to be more you. Being around those types of people feeds your soul. It's about valuing the differences each person brings. So with Deep Mysteries and the Page of Pentacles, I feel like you're here to make people have epiphanies. That sounds dramatic, but it's not wrong. You guys don't want surface level anything. Like, when you explore a topic, you need to go deep. You probably know that about yourself. Like, when you're passionate about something, you want to uncover everything there is to know. It's that Mercury dominant crow-like intelligence paired with that profound emotional intelligence. It's like you're wired to peel back the layers. And I won't be surprised if the work that feeds your soul is something, I want to say, exploring a topic that's still unfolding. Something where we don't already know everything there is to know. Because if you're in a field where humanity has like figured it all out and that's just that, you will get bored. You want living knowledge, you want mystery, you want discovery. So this could be, I mean, anything, to be quite honest. It could be new scientific breakthroughs, things about quantum mechanics and laws of the universe, or, you know, strong 8th house themes. I'm getting 8th house energy here too. So mystery, taboo, transformation, or even like something about combining the scientific and the spiritual, because Pentacles can be about tangible matters, you know, material proof, practical application. It's like you want grounded evidence and soul truth at the same time. You want to understand how both things can sit side by side. So maybe something like topics, taboo topics that have been historically shut down or ignored. So something like women's health, that's a massive one. Things that are under-researched or underfunded, things that have been dismissed for decades. You know, it could be reproductive health, menstruation, pregnancy, perimenopause, menopause, stuff like that, or neurodivergence in women, underdiagnosis, being overlooked. You could be pulled towards research and advocacy and education or healing work in those particular spaces. There's also something about somatic and scientific merging. Getting something about doulas, I'm getting something about yoni healing, women's healing, and even I'm hearing end of life care as well. But specifically, is there like, I don't know whether it's called a doula, but a doula equivalent, but for death. Like helping somebody pass on, but in a kind of spiritual way. I don't know, something about that is coming through. I don't know if there's a word for it. I'm sorry if there is and I'm not getting it quite right. But I'm getting that, you know, someone who holds space as people transition, or someone who studies grief and how different cultures honour death and the dead. There's something about creation and death here. 5th house creation, 8th house transformation, that sort of dichotomy. And for some of you, it could be uncovering mystery in a different way, like psychology, the human mind, behaviour, why people do what they do. I'm getting detective energy. You guys will be excellent detectives. Seeing something about true crime and unsolved mysteries, paranormal mysteries maybe. Somebody watching documentaries about serial killers, not because you're dark and twisted, but because you want to understand the mind, the patterns, you know, how did we get here? You might get hyperfixations where you like stay up all night, deep dive in every single Reddit thread about a certain topic because you need to uncover the truth. You need to work it out. And honestly, that kind of thing feeds your soul because it's how your brain is built. Even outside of career, this tends to be how you do life. You know, you want depth in relationships too. You don't want surface level. You want to get right to the heart of things. You could be the type of person who, if you go on a first date, you skip the small talk entirely and you get straight into like philosophy and the big mysteries, the big questions. And if you grew up in a family maybe where that wasn't welcome, you know, your parents were like, oh, Paltu, do you have to talk about this at the dinner table? Like, don't be so macabre. You might have been told to tone it down or something like that. But to you, it's not macabre, it's honest. It's exciting as well to uncover these mysteries. You believe even the sort of ugly emotions deserve to be explored. And honestly, you're right. Like, that's part of the redemption theme again. You know, nothing is beyond compassion. And with Leo and the Tower, the creative energy and life force here is really, really strong, Paltu. Sacral chakra, fire, life force. I keep getting that word. It's like your information comes directly from source and you are meant to change the world with it. I'm hearing the great catalyst, and this has come through in my readings before, and it's exactly that. You change not only your own life, but the lives of others and the world around you. You act as a fundamental catalyst in people's lives. You meet them at these pivotal moments, and it puts them on completely different trajectories. And Leo in the 5th house is definitely very relevant here. You know, joy, creativity, romance, self-expression, performance, passion projects, hobbies that feel like play, but they become a big part of your purpose. There's something about finding your stage coming through that could be literal or metaphorical. It's like the word that feeds your soul is something where you can shine and entertain, and you can inspire and you can uplift and you can be seen. But with the Tower clarifying it, it's like, yeah, you're meant to shake things up as well. Like, old structures are meant to crumble around you. And if in previous jobs you were deemed as a threat, and you were pushed out or othered or punished for seeing too clearly or punished for blowing the whistle, this is why, because you don't just fit in, you reveal what's not working and you ignite change. There is strong leadership ability here, and some of you might be reluctant leaders, especially if you're more introverted, but make no mistake, you are meant to guide. You are meant to show people a new way. You are meant to dismantle old systems that aren't serving anyone, and it feeds your soul when you're brave enough to do that and you're brave enough to be seen. I mentioned Chiron in Leo before. That could absolutely be relevant for some of you, that wound around visibility and being perceived and taking up space. And, you know, that healing journey of going from terrified of being seen to actually stepping into it and having a platform, speaking, creating, allowing eyes on you without shrinking. That is going to feed your soul, Paltu, whether you like it or not. And you're not meant to compete with how other people do it. You know, Leo's shadow side can be competitiveness, needing to be the one who roars the loudest, but this isn't about being the loudest in the room. It's about your roar getting louder compared to how it was yesterday. It's you growing into your own power. And I'm actually getting Lion King energy right now. Like when baby Simba is asked to roar, and he is laughed at. He's made to feel pathetic. He's made to feel too small. He's made to feel unfit to lead by Scar, because Scar wants to make him feel that way. It benefits Scar because he wants the power, even though he doesn't deserve it. He tries to convince Simba that he is going to be a better leader. He wants Simba to run away so he can take over. But then Simba comes back and he claims what was always his. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen The Lion King, but you should have done by now. But yeah, there are many people out there who are like Scar, people who want a clout chase, people who want the power, the status, that messiah type treatment, whilst offering nothing of substance. Just surface level, self-serving bullshit. But you actually have something important to say. You have the depth, you have the heart, and you have the discernment. And you have the lived experience and the compassion. The role has always been yours, and it feeds your soul when you stop hiding and you actually step into that. So overall, Pal 2, what I'm getting is that the work that truly feeds your soul is big work, but it's not necessarily big in a loud, showy, ego-driven way. It's big because it's meaningful, it's big because it changes people, and it's big because it ripples out into the collective. There's something here about you being that catalyst, someone who comes into spaces, relationships, community systems, and just by being you, things shift, things wake up, people have epiphanies. The truth begins rising to the surface, and even if you try to downplay that or, convince yourself you're not that powerful, I don't think your soul buys it, because your soul knows. This pile is such a unique blend of softness and strength. You are here to lead with your heart, but you're also here to discern things, to know what's real and what's a performance, what's integrity and what's just hierarchy, and what's genuine versus what's people just playing games. And I feel like the more you honor that, the more you start forcing yourself to fit into environments that just require you to be smaller and quieter and less honest and less tapped in than what you are, the more aligned you become. It feeds your soul to do work that truly has depth, work where you're allowed to be curious and go right to the root of things and ask questions, and where you're allowed to be human, and where your vulnerability isn't treated like an inconvenience or a liability, but like the bridge that connects you to other people. And it feeds your soul to be around your people, your tribe, the ones who actually get it, the ones who don't punish you for being sincere or for seeing too much or for caring too deeply, the ones who never want you to pretend. And yeah, Leo and that tower, it's giving like you are meant to be seen, but it's not because you're chasing attention, but because your voice and your stories genuinely change things. And for some of you, it's creative work. For others, it's guiding and mentoring and teaching and healing, or researching and investigating and advocacy, anything where you help people understand themselves and the world more clearly. But the theme is the same. You're not here to be hardened. You're not here to shrink either. You are here to be brave enough to show up as you are and let your light do what it came here to do. So that's what I'm getting for you, Pal 2, and that's where I'm going to leave you today, my loves. Thank you so much for being here and spending your time with me. I really hope something in this reading gave you clarity or comfort. If you feel called to, the best ways to support a small channel like mine are to like, comment, hype, share and sub, but only if it feels genuinely right for you, no pressure at all. On a personal note, I do really love hearing from you guys. Please feel free to tell me what resonated, even if it's just leaving an emoji or telling me which pal you picked. It really does help. It lets me know you're out there and that you see me and that we're actually connecting in this little internet space, and I appreciate that more than I can say. With that said, I'm sending you lots of love, take care of yourselves, be gentle with yourselves, and I'll see you at the next reading, Pal 2. Hi Pal 3 Collective, if you chose the Gourmet Tarot and you chose the Brownies sticker and you chose Pal 3, you are in the correct place. Welcome to your reading, friends. If you would like a full breakdown of everything this reading will entail, please check out my introduction. I do go through absolutely everything there. I will also leave some details in the pinned comment below for your reference. I'd recommend checking at least one of those out so you know what to expect from this reading today. Just a little reminder, if you guys haven't seen my latest community post, please take a moment to check it out. One of the most talented readers in this space, Psychic Siren Tarot, has sadly lost access to her main account after it was hacked. She's such a beautiful soul and I'm honestly just really devastated for her. I've linked her second channel in the community post, so if you feel called, please go and have a look. Let's help raise her up. I think she could really do with the support right now. Thank you so much if you're able to do that. With that said, today's reading is titled, What Kind of Work Truly Feeds Your Soul? Career, Passion and Purpose. This reading is all about nourishment, the kind that sustains you long term. We are looking at what lights you up, what you're naturally good at, and the type of work, in the very broadest sense, that helps you feel aligned, purposeful and alive. And honestly, at the heart of it, we're basically asking, what does your soul love to gobble up like an expertly glazed baked good? And you've picked the brownies, so I think this reading is going to be a treat. For some of you, this might show up through career or creative pursuits. For others, it might speak more to passion, purpose, or the way you show up in the world more generally. There's no pressure here to be anything specifically. This is about understanding what actually feeds you rather than drains you. So with that said, and without any further hesitation, let's have a look at what we pulled for you today, pile 3. I'm just going to move your little brownie sticker to one side for now, so we can focus on the cards. So starting over here, we have, from the Archetypes Oracle, Judge, Light Attributes, Balancing Justice and Compassion, Managing the Fair Distribution of Power, Shadow Attributes, Offering Only Destructive Criticism, Misusing Business, Legal or Criminal Authority. And clarifying Judge, we have the Sun in reverse. From the Woodland Wardens Oracle, we have got the Lizard and Pitcher Plant, Stagnation. And clarifying that, we have got Justice. That's really interesting with Judge coming up. Maybe something about the legal field, advocacy work could be relevant for you guys. Libra energy as well. From the Hecate Oracle, we have got Queen of Witches, Own Your Power. I love that card so much. And clarifying Own Your Power, we've got the 8 of Wands. Cool. From the Wild Muse Oracle, we have got Love is in the Air, Venusian energy coming through. And clarifying that, we have got the Magician. I love that. From the Pearls of Wisdom Oracle, we have got Aphrodite, definitely Libra or Taurus energy, Venusian energy coming through. As we awaken to the divinity within ourselves and others, we realise that unconditional love and appreciation for the beauty in all things is the key to spiritual growth. And clarifying that, we have got the Queen of Wands. And from the Blooming Cat Tarot, we have got Libra. Yeah, I think we said that. So September 23rd to October 22nd could be relevant for you guys. Optimistic, gracious, charming, perfectionist, indecisive, controlling. Element is air. Ruling planet Venus. Major Arcana card Justice, which is coming through. I love when everything just lines up in a reading. You don't have to be a Libra, by the way. I will talk about that. But yeah, stones are opal and peridot. Colours pink and green. Lucky numbers 4, 6 and 9. Flowers, rose and daisy. I also want to give an honourable mention to the number 7 for Libra, because 7th house energy, that could be relevant. It doesn't say it on the card, but I want to mention it. I'll go through the number confirmations in a second. And clarifying Libra, we have got the 3 of Cups. So in terms of the number confirmations, for those of you who like them, again, these do not have to resonate for this to be your pile, but if they do, just take them as an extra little nudge. So from that Libra card, we have the numbers 4, 6 and 9. Of course, I also mentioned 7 if you want to take that. So these could show up for you as a date, a birthday or an age, a month or year, a life path number, an angel number or synchronicity you've been seeing a lot of, an astrological house or the sign associated with that house. And of course, if these numbers are showing up for you in any other meaningful way, take that as confirmation too. Obviously, I'm not going to list every possible way they might apply, as my readings are already long enough. But just a quick reminder, again, you do not have to be a Libra for this pile to resonate. We are using these Blooming Cat Tarot cards more to represent an archetype and the energy you're currently working with, alongside some of the strengths and lessons associated with that sign. But of course, if you do have strong Libra or 7th house placements, Sun, Moon, Rising, or just anything prominent, you can absolutely take that as extra confirmation. Now, to go on to the main portion of the reading, pile 3, this is such an interesting energy because I'm getting something that's very relationship based, and I don't just mean that as romantic relationships. It's kind of about your relationship with power, personal power, with fairness, your relationship with joy, and with love, and honestly also your relationship with yourself. There's a big theme here of you being someone who naturally notices when things are out of balance. That is one of the first main things that I'm getting. It's like you can feel it in your bones when something isn't fair, or when power is being misused, or when someone is being treated like they're lesser than. And it's not in a kind of like petty way. I mean, this is something you sort of clock on that soul level. It's like whenever you enter a room and something is taking place, you observe that and you're constantly asking, is this actually just? And who benefits from this? And also who doesn't benefit from this? You always have an awareness of that. And the first thing that really jumped out to me is that we almost have no reversals in your energy apart from this Sun in reverse. So I do want to talk about that. Yeah, because that is really calling to me. Like, that card is just being dramatic on purpose. It is giving me this sense that a lot of you guys have had periods in your life where it's like your natural warmth and your confidence and your playfulness and your glow got dimmed. And I don't mean that in a sort of like disempowering way. I mean, it's like you've had to learn to dull your light just to survive in certain rooms. Some of you have dealt with so much unnecessary judgment, projection, criticism, and it kind of trains you into being harder on yourself than you ever would be on anyone else. And I want to say this really gently, pal 3, because there's a lot of ways where maybe you guys feel like this trait that you possess that I'm going to talk about has kind of worked to your detriment or got you in trouble in some ways, which you didn't deserve, by the way. But a lot of you, I just want to say it, you are straight up beautiful. Beautiful, it's immediate. And, you know, we can talk about pretty privilege online all day. I know that is a thing. But there's also a shadow side to that too. Because I'm getting this vibe of people staring at you for your whole life. Sometimes in a way that feels flattering, but sometimes in a way that's more uncomfortable or creepy or invasive. Or in a way that just makes you feel like you're being viewed as an object rather than a full human being. And that could have led you to you doing that thing where you shrink yourself or you tone parts of yourself down that actually feed your soul just to avoid that attention or avoid the commentary or avoid people assuming things about you. I'm also getting that due to this, people have likely made unfair assessments about your intelligence or your character based on how you might present yourself, like stereotypes basically. And sometimes when someone can't easily find a flaw in you, they will go looking for one. Like they will work overtime to find something to criticize because it helps them feel better about themselves. You know, like zooming in on your pictures, being like, pal 3 can't be so perfect. Like I have to find something. So it's like you're under more of a lens of scrutiny in some ways than other people. You know, this could have shown up in your past as having jealous frenemies, competitive people, cliquey energy, passive aggression, and it creates this feeling of loneliness, like you were being punished just for existing as you are. And I think this especially applies, this is not just a gendered thing, but I always say I do give examples based on things that are personal to me and experiences I've had as a woman. But I do notice this if you are a femme presenting person and you maybe have some stereotypically feminine hobbies. For example, you don't have to be, but if you're someone who enjoys style and beauty and fashion, colour and makeup, playing with certain aesthetics, if you enjoy any kind of artistry around presentation, it's giving me this idea that you might have had people in your life who tried to make you feel like you're doing too much, or like you're trying to get attention, or as though your hobbies are somehow shallow or less valid than theirs. And I'm going to say something now that always gets on my nerves. There's like this weird cultural thing where those stereotypically feminine hobbies can't just be enjoyed for what they are. Like if a woman likes makeup, for example, suddenly it has to be about male attention or insecurity on her part. And I'm a woman who personally loves experimenting with makeup. I wouldn't say that I'm good at it. I just like the exploration of using different colours and using different techniques and things like that. I like doing it just for fun and I'm really interested in it. I like watching videos about new products and reviews and seeing what people do with their makeup and stuff like that. And it's almost like, so to give an example, like my male partner really loves cars. He watches car videos the way I watch makeup videos. He will spend time cleaning his car like it's a sacred ritual. And nobody's ever said to my partner, oh, he's only into cars because he wants female attention. Like girls like men with nice cars. He's just trying to get female attention. Because that would be a ridiculous assumption, right? But somehow with makeup or fashion or beauty, it's always framed like it can't just be art. It can't just be something beautiful. It can't just be enjoyment. It can't just be colour theory and transformation and technique. You know, nobody ever says to a person who, for example, loves to modify their vehicle, nobody says like, oh, you're only getting those mods because you're insecure. Like, why can't you just let your car be how it is? Why can't you just let your car be how it is naturally? Because that would be fucking stupid. And let's be really real, like, if somebody is putting on bright blue eyeshadow, they are not doing that for the men. Like, that's not for a man. That is for the girls, it's for the gays, and it's for the person wearing it. That is all. So if you've ever been made to feel ashamed for what you enjoy, it doesn't have to be that example of makeup, but if you've ever felt like you've had to tone yourself down to be more palatable, I want you to know that's exactly what this sun reversed is speaking to. You were never wrong for liking what you like. People were wrong for projecting their weirdness onto you for no reason. But there could be something about sexism or misogyny wrapped up in this for some of you guys. And it doesn't have to just show up in terms of your hobbies, it can show up in your achievements too. Like, for example, if you were proud of something or you did really well at something, and then someone hit you with that passive aggressive like, oh, well, aren't you just perfect? Sort of backhanded vibe, you could have learned to stop celebrating yourself, or you learned to brush off compliments, or you learned to sort of undercharge or undersell or underplay your talent because being visible feels unsafe. But the thing is, PASTRY, you cannot dim yourself and feed your soul at the same time. It's just too much effort. It's spiritual self-abandonment, and I think some of you are at the point where you are just done with that. Because you are definitely not like all style and no substance, not even close. What you have is both, and that's what people find threatening, that you can be gorgeous and talented, you can be charming and smart, you can care about aesthetics and also have depth. Two things can be true at once, and you don't have to audition for someone's approval to prove that. Now, I want to talk about that judge energy, because even if you guys have been judged unfairly in the past, I'm getting that it's also shaped you and how you show up in the world. You do not judge things at face value, and that's what I meant with this depth. Like, you are someone who genuinely strives for equality and fairness. You are someone who can see multiple angles and sides of things. You leave space for nuance when it comes to complex topics, and you can be very compassionate without being naive. You're the kind of person who can hear someone out, and you can take in the facts and you can weigh it up, and then you can land on some kind of balanced outcome, not just these emotional knee-jerk reactions. And quite honestly, in this current climate, that is very rare. Like, people want everything to be polarized. People want you to pick a side. They want you to pick a label. They want you to pick a box. And you're like, no, some things are more complex than that. And that ability to live in the gray area when it's appropriate to do so does take an enormous amount of courage. And I just want to be really clear here. I'm not talking about basic human rights. Like, that's not a grey area. If someone's arguing for people to have rights and somebody else is arguing for people to not have rights, that's not nuance, that's bigotry. And I'm not getting that kind of fence sitter energy from you, because you will stand up for what's right. Ultimately, you will be on the right side of history, let's put it that way. But in other areas of life, like relationships and misunderstandings and conflict resolution and these complicated situations that are more than just like a yes or no answer, you're able to bring people into the middle and say like, okay, let's talk like adults. You would have been lethal on a debate team, by the way. And I'm also getting a tiny bit of like Elle Woods, that sort of energy. Like, people underestimate you and you're like, oh, babe, that's adorable. Anyway, here are the facts. And you've got it all figured out. You're probably like an excellent mediator, somebody who would work amazingly in the legal field, being a judge, being able to see like multiple sides and angles of a situation. And the stagnation card with justice is basically saying, when you feel stuck, PASTRY, it's often because you've stayed somewhere longer than you should, out of this sense of misplaced duty, or trying to be patient, or trying to be fair, or trying to be reasonable, even when the scales are tipped against you. It's like you might have struggled in the past, for some of you, with some element of people pleasing. You might have given people too many chances because you will try to be the bigger person and you'll try to keep the peace, but then one day, usually something snaps, and you look around and you realise like, I'm giving too much to this. And this can happen in jobs, in friendships, with romantic relationships. Anywhere there's a sense of like unequal give and take, that doesn't feed your soul. That can make you quite bitter in some regards. And I'm actually getting a really clear example here from my own personal life to ground this, because I've been in work environments like this myself. So I've had this similar feeling. This is just one random example. It doesn't have to apply to you. I'm just using this to explain the feeling you might get if you're in one of these environments. So I remember one of my old jobs. The specifics of the job itself don't really matter, but what does matter is that the leadership at this workplace was not the best. And at the time, I didn't really fully clock it, because it was one of my first proper jobs. I was young, I was kind of naive, and I was just grateful to be employed. I was just grateful to be earning money and holding down a job. I wasn't really trying to rock the boat. I wasn't a particularly combative person. I was just there to work. But I have always had like a strong sense of justice sensitivity, and I'm getting that same thing for you, PASTRY, like a really strong sense of like you pointing it out when things aren't fair. And my main manager, I actually liked her. Like, she was a nice person, but the kind of personality she had, in just my opinion, she wasn't suited to being a manager, because she was somebody who wanted everyone to like her, and she was quite easily swayed. And because of that, people with stronger, louder, more like dominant personalities, I guess, basically often overpowered her authority. And the thing that really got to me in this workplace, and this is very much like that justice energy, was the inconsistency. Like, one rule for one person and a completely different rule for somebody else. I could not stand that. So for example, we would have these training days every few months where managers would just explain the rules to new staff members and go over existing rules and things like that. And at one stage, they used to be quite lenient with us, like, having our phones out on our desk as long as it wasn't around, I'll just say, customers. But at one of these meetings, there was this newer rule where they were kind of saying they'd prefer it if our phones were in our bags, like, try not to have phones on desks. And that was fine, like, I didn't really care because the job was so busy anyway that I never really got a chance to look at my phone. Like, it wasn't usually out anyway. The only time I ever checked my phone was on a 30-minute lunch break during a 10-hour shift. So I was fine following this rule until I noticed that nobody else was. And there was this older woman that I work with. I'm just going to call her Stacey for the sake of this story. Stacey had her phone out constantly, like day in, day out. Texts her phone was always bleeping, she was always getting calls. She was always stepping out of the room for personal calls multiple times a day. Sometimes the phone would be ringing, and because she was on her phone, I would have to pick up the phone, which, do you know what? Like, I wasn't even mad at Stacey. Like, I don't know what she's got going on personally, and I'm not a snitch. Like, if she needed to take a call, that's her business. I was just focused on doing the job. But in the back of my mind, I was thinking, oh, well, they must still be, like, quite lenient about this rule. It must not be being enforced. Because management would walk past her and they'd see this. Specifically one assistant manager who was always on a bit of a power trip. I'm going to call her Becky for the sake of this story. And she never ever said a word to Stacey, not once. And just as a little bit of context here, Stacey was quite a lot older than me, and her personality, she was very feisty, she was very confident, she was very much like, I know my rights, that type of person. And if someone were to challenge her, she would absolutely push back, which, like, good for her. Anyway, I kind of observed this going on for a while, and I didn't really think much of it. I just thought, oh, well, they must not be that serious about this rule with the phones. But there was this one day where I was waiting on a really important call and I didn't want to miss it. So I had my phone on my desk. It was silent, so it wouldn't disturb anyone, but it's just so I had it in front of me so I could see it light up. And as soon as the assistant manager, Becky, saw that I had my phone out, she comes storming over to the desk, like all guns blazing, and she's like, can you put your phone away? We've had meetings about this. Like, I had committed some huge crime. And that moment just made it really clear to me that this rule was being enforced, just not evenly. And I noticed that often younger, quieter staff members, less dominant personalities were often policed, whereas older staff, louder staff, people who might argue back, they were, like, untouchable. And yeah, I could have explained to Becky, like, oh, hey, I'm expecting an important call today. I could have told her that and she might have been all right with it, I don't know. But why should I have to explain my personal life when other people didn't have to explain anything at all? I also noticed a lot of unfairness between, like, people who had kids and people who didn't, because the excuse was often like, oh, well, they have kids. And that was anything from them having to have their phone out to them, like, not being able to pick up shifts because they have kids. And that implies that people without kids don't have family responsibilities too. And also Stacey's kids were grown up. They didn't even live with her, so that didn't even apply in the same way. I know you're always a parent, no matter how old your kids are, but her kids weren't relying on her. They weren't, like, needing to be picked up from school and things like that. And over time, you know, seeing that kind of unfairness, of course, that was just one random example of it, but day in, day out, it made me really bitter and it made me lose trust in the leadership. And it made me care much less about doing my best work because I realised, like, I can work hard here, but if I'm young or I'm non-confrontational, I'm still going to be treated like crap. And it didn't even stop there. I remember one time I had gone upstairs to photocopy something. I was literally doing my job. I was doing something I had to do. And a colleague, similar age to me, a few years younger than me, I'm going to call him Sam just for the sake of the story. He was just asking me how my weekend was while I was waiting for the copier. And Becky storms in again, demanding to know why I wasn't at my desk and accusing me of chatting instead of working whilst I am actively photocopying. I'm doing my work. Meanwhile, I'm just going on a rant now. Becky had her own office, right? And every time you walked in there, she was looking at wedding dresses online during busy periods as well, like for hours. She would take long lunches. She was paid significantly more than us, but seemed to do a lot less. And she always framed her decisions as, like, being a strong leader, making tough decisions. She was kind of delulu. She was like, yeah, sometimes when you have to make strong decisions, people don't like you. And it's like, no, Becky, people don't dislike you because you're a strong leader. They dislike you because we are getting absolutely rammed and you are looking at bridal wear and you're getting paid for it. They disliked it. They were hostile because the environment was fundamentally unfair and hypocritical and exhausting. And it wasn't just me who dealt with this. I saw this like with other younger members of staff too. So this wasn't exclusive to me. It wasn't just something that I pointed out, but it made for a very unpleasant work environment. Oh, I also found out at one point at this place that a girl that I had trained up, someone I had put hours into teaching and letting her shadow me, I found out she was being paid more than me. And when I went to management and I was like, why is this happening? They were like, oh, I don't know. And there was no back pay and no accountability. And I'm just sharing these stories because you do not thrive in environments like that. What feeds your soul, Pal 3, is fairness, it's consistency, it's accountability, it's clear rules that apply to everyone, spaces where power isn't abused, where people don't play favourites, and where you don't have to shrink yourself or over-explain yourself just to be treated with basic respect. And when those things are missing, stagnation sets in fast because your spirit knows when something isn't right, even if you're trying to logic your way into staying. You guys, you need consistency and you need clear expectations, you need accountability, you need places where the rules apply to everyone, not just whoever's easiest to bully. This is why a lot of you would actually do really well in roles connected to justice, law, advocacy, mediation, conflict resolution, HR policy, union type roles, or anything where you are protecting fairness and holding systems accountable, because your soul just cannot breathe in environments where power dynamics are uneven and nobody owns their own behaviour. Now, the Queen of Witches with the 8 of Wands is basically a turning point for you guys. And this is saying the moment you stop hiding and you stop playing small and you stop trying to be palatable, things move really quickly. I'm getting lightning speed, like the momentum returns. So opportunities opening up. And what feeds your soul is realizing that the very qualities that people have tried to make you feel bad about, your beauty, your charm, your diplomacy, your eye for harmony, your ability to create an atmosphere, those are powers, those are your tools, those are your assets, and you're allowed to use them. Because if someone gets it into their head that like, oh, Pal 3 only got that job because they're pretty or something like that, you could have 3 degrees, you could have a CV made of flipping gold leaves and the blood of 1,000 internships on your hands, and they will still believe what they want to believe. Ultimately, you cannot control that. So instead of shrinking yourself to be taken seriously, accept that 2 things can be true at once. You can be gorgeous and you can also be the most competent person in that room. You can be charming and likable and you can also have substance. You do not have to hide any part of yourself to make insecure people feel better. You do not. I'm getting that some of you, your power is subtle. Like the power of persuasion is coming through. Like you can convince people of things with a velvet tongue and a soft touch. I'm hearing that phrase, you catch more flies with honey, and people sometimes they misunderstand or mislabel that kind of power because it isn't necessarily like loud and dominating. So they label it as like fake or manipulative. Often people will label Libras that way too. And I understand Libra, like all signs, has a shadow side where that can be true, but in its highest form, that's not what it's about. And the difference is with you, it's like you use this gift for harmony and fairness and peace and connection because you have an understanding that different people require different approaches. Some people respond to direct confrontation, but a lot of people don't because of ego. And especially with stubborn personalities, you know, that softer approach can get you further. Sometimes it's like you can guide someone into the right decision and let them think it was their idea when it was actually yours all along because you understand that that's what their ego needs, and that's not you being shady, that's you being strategic and diplomatic and effective as well. Like I'm also getting this example, do you know when celebrities do those nude or lingerie calendars for charity and people say, well, you know, people are only buying it because that celebrity is hot and they want to see them naked, and it's like, okay, but ultimately if the charity is still getting the money, like who cares, you know, like the cause is still being funded. So if people try to tell you, you know, you're all style, remember like style can be the gateway, aesthetic can be the hook, presentation matters, marketing matters. 2 people can have the same product, same quality, same price, and the one who presents it better, who has like a clean, harmonious website that is user-friendly and they use good lighting, good visuals, that person is more likely to succeed. And that isn't shallow. That is the reality of things. And this is why I'm getting a lot of you would really, really thrive in fields that involve anything where you have to beautify things. So beautifying spaces, people, or experiences. So makeup, hair, fashion, styling, set and costume designs, interiors, design generally, branding, marketing, website design, photography, color theory, modeling even. I'm also getting like wedding planning, event planning, anything where you are creating harmony and a vibe. And those things are just as important as everything else. Like, the details matter, because when you're watching a show and you want it to be immersive, set and costume design is just as important as acting and writing when it comes to conveying mood. And people often take that work for granted because a lot of those people, they might work behind the scenes, but if something's off, you feel it. If you're watching a show and something about that show takes you out of the time or the place it's supposed to be set in, there are hundreds of Reddit threads calling that out. Like, people notice these things, and you have that eye for detail and for curating something perfect and in alignment. You understand those details matter. You know, if you're throwing a dinner party, it's not just about what you're serving. It's like picking the perfect napkins, the lighting, the colours, the mood. And people who don't have that gift will mock it right up until the second everything comes together and they go, oh wow, like, this is gorgeous. Something about this just feels right, it feels harmonious. And even then, half of them will still take it for granted, but their subconscious will pick up on it. We need people who think about the little things and know how to put things together. I'm thinking of putting an outfit together as well. Like, sometimes you can look at a top on a hanger and be like, that's an ugly top. But if somebody puts a whole outfit together and they accessorize it and they're going for a particular aesthetic, you watch how it can come together and transform into something completely different. That is a skill. Now, let's talk about Love is in the Air, clarified by the Magician, because this is such a big one for you, Pal 3. And this is actually telling me that love, pleasure, attraction, and connection, all of that is not a byproduct of your purpose. It's not a distraction from your work. It is actually deeply baked into it. You're someone who creates best when your heart is involved, when you care, and when you feel emotionally engaged with what you're doing. And when you're excited by it, when it feels good in your body and not just like logical on paper. I'm really getting this sense of you having that Midas touch. Like, genuinely, whatever you put your energy into, you know how to elevate it, you know how to improve it. You bring something intangible to it that other people just can't quite replicate. And that's that magician energy. It's using all your tools, being resourceful, not just the ones that are easy to explain on a CV, but your very presence, your charm, your emotional intelligence, your ability to read a room, and your creativity, your warmth. And this might be something you've been conflicted about to some degree in the past, because yes, it can attract attention, and sometimes too much attention. I'm getting that people can fall a little bit in love with you before they even really know you, and that's not always comfortable. It's not always welcome. And yeah, sometimes it might have felt invasive or overwhelming, especially earlier in life. But what's shifting here is your relationship to that dynamic, because instead of internalizing it and saying like, I must be doing something wrong, or I need to change this part of me, it's more like, no, this is just a part of my energy. This is how people respond to me, and I get to decide how to use it. It is just another tool in my toolkit. And that's where the magician comes in, because this is about agency. You are not here to be at the mercy of other people's reactions to you. You are here to consciously work with what you've been given. I'm getting that you have a really strong influence over the atmosphere of a space. Like, when you walk into a room, it feels as though things just soften, or they brighten, or they calm down in some way. You can diffuse tension without even trying. You know when to crack a joke, and you know when to change the subject. You know when to pivot, and you know when to bring that warmth in. And sometimes that's been dismissed as like not a real skill or just being nice. But actually, this is incredibly powerful. It's like, in some ways, you are the medicine, you are the antidote, you are the secret ingredient, you are the calming presence. Yeah, you're that ingredient, that seasoning that just makes everything else work better. And yeah, I keep getting this image of you hosting something like a dinner party or a gathering or a work event, and everyone else, they might be focused on the more obvious stuff like the food or the agenda for the evening. But again, you were thinking about absolutely everything, you know, the lighting, the colours, the mood, how people will feel in that space. And then afterwards, people leave feeling like, wow, that was such a good night. That night felt like magic because you have added your magic touch to it without even realizing. You think about the details that most people don't, and those details completely change the experience. And yeah, going back to that resourcefulness thing with the magician, you don't need to strip yourself back to be taken seriously. You don't need to put your work in a brown paper bag to make it palatable. If you know that presentation and aesthetics and charm and visibility will help people find what you're doing, you are allowed to use that. Like, just as one example, if you're marketing something or you're posting content or building a brand and you know that a beautiful image, a carefully curated look, or a certain vibe will get more eyes on it, that does not make you shallow, that makes you smart. That is using your tools with intention, especially if the end goal is something meaningful and creative and genuinely helpful. You are allowed to make the packaging beautiful and the thing still has substance inside it. Those things don't have to be mutually exclusive. Okay, now let's talk about Aphrodite, clarified by the Queen of Wands, because this feels really important for you, Pal 3. What feeds your soul here is being able to actually own your power instead of constantly shrinking it and downplaying it or pretending you don't know you have it. And again, it's not power in a loud or aggressive way. I mean that quiet, self-assured confidence of knowing who you are and what you bring and not feeling the need to apologize for it. Because I keep getting the image of like, Aphrodite, she's not doing the coffee run, is she? Do you know what I mean? And it's not because making coffee is beneath anyone, but it's because when Aphrodite walks into a room, people get it. You know, nobody's like, oh, Aphrodite love, can you just grab everyone a coffee while the rest of us talk? You know, no one's undermining her, no one's talking over her, no one is mistaking her warmth and her love and her beauty for a weakness. And I think a lot of you have been in environments, work, relationships, social spaces where you've been subtly trained to manage other people's comfort by being extra nice to not make them feel intimidated, extra accommodating, extra humble, making yourself smaller so you don't come across as arrogant or too much. Having controlling partners, asking you to tone things down. Friends who quietly compete with you, asking, oh, do you have to dress like that? Can you tone it down a bit? You're attracting too much attention, that sort of thing. That drains you on a soul level because how you naturally are is beautiful. Like, you're not arrogant or attention seeking, but your light is natural. You shine without trying. You bring warmth into rooms without too much effort. And when people around you are insecure, instead of dealing with their own bullshit, they will try and clip your wings. But it takes more effort for you and drains more from your soul to keep toning yourself down when you should never have to do that, if that makes sense. You know, the Queen of Wands, she knows the effect she has on people. She knows she lights up the room and she is not scared of that. She's not constantly worrying about whether she's too much or whether she needs to tone it down so other people don't feel threatened. And I'm really getting that for some of you. You've been made to feel like your beauty, your charm, your charisma somehow cancels out your intelligence or your competence. Like, if you're attractive or you're warm or you're likable, then you must not be serious or you must not have worked as hard or you must have just been lucky, which is such bullshit, quite honestly. Like, that is so fucking bullshit because nobody ever says that about people who are naturally intelligent, you know? Like, we all knew those people in school who never revised, never studied, never put much effort in, did everything last minute, and because they were naturally sharper or quicker at picking up on certain concepts, or they didn't have to try very hard, they still got the best grades in the class, while people who actually put the effort in got an average grade or less than an average grade. And nobody ever says to them like, oh, you only did well because you're smart. Well, people might say that to them, but my point is they don't really make them feel bad about it. They realise, like, it's a tool in the toolkit. But when it comes to things like beauty, suddenly it's treated like something you should apologise for or try to neutralise to be taken seriously. And this is where Aphrodite comes in, because she doesn't hate herself for being desirable. She doesn't feel guilty about it. She doesn't make herself smaller so other people feel comfortable. She just is, and people respond accordingly. So what feeds your soul is being in spaces where you don't have to dim yourself to be respected, where you don't have to dress down or talk less or laugh quieter or play dumb to be palatable, where your presence isn't treated like something that needs to be managed. And there's a really practical layer to this as well, because I'm getting actually that some of you undercharge or you undersell or you downplay your work because you're a bit frightened of being perceived as arrogant or full of yourself. And honestly, that is not humility, that's self-erasure. So I'm going to give a really tangible example here. Even if, you know, let's say you are a nail tech and over the years you've really worked hard and mastered your craft and your artistry, every single set you do has that extra touch. People recognize it. They're like, oh, there's just something about the way Pal 3 does nails. The designs are so cool and unique. There's nothing quite like it. And it's not just about like the gems or the colours that you use, it's how everything comes together. It's the details and the balance and the care you put into it. And on top of that, maybe your clients love how you make them feel. Maybe you're really friendly and you're great with people, or you never hurt them. You never make their skin bleed. And they're like, I would never go to another tech. You know, this person, this Pal 3 person is the whole package. But even though you've invested that time and money and energy and years of learning, maybe you don't want to raise your prices because you're scared it'll alienate people. You're scared they'll stop coming, or you're scared of being seen as like greedy or like you're getting too big for your boobs. But no, PASTRY, you need to charge what you're worth, because people will pay for it. People will come to you specifically for what you do, and you deserve to be honoured for the amount of love and care you pour into your work. You don't deserve to be taken advantage of or taken for granted by clients, by friends, by partners, or by anyone. The Queen of Wands isn't running around trying to convince people of her worth. She doesn't need to. She just shows up. She's expressive and she's creative. She lets that energy speak for itself. And I think that's the shift for you, PAL3. It's like moving from constantly managing how you're perceived to trusting that the right people will see you properly, and the ones that don't were never your people anyway. Because yeah, you might have some nail clients who complain about the prices and feel entitled to your time and your services, but you're also going to have some nail clients who are like, heck yeah, I'll pay more for it because you're the best. Like, you're great at what you do and you deserve the rewards for that. Obviously, it's not just that example, that's just one random example. And yeah, with Libra and the Three of Cups, it's kind of bringing all of this together. What really feeds your soul is, it has a lot to do with the relationships in your life and the people you're surrounded by. The relationships that you guys choose really matter more than you might realize. And I don't just mean that in the sense of romantic relationships, although of course those are important, but it's also about friends and collaborators and business partners, your family, soul fam. The energy you're immersed in on a day-to-day basis needs to be one of love. Because for you guys, life really isn't meant to be like all work and no play. You were just not built for that. You're not here to grind yourself into the ground for something you don't even enjoy, just so you can say you're being responsible. You're meant to actually love what you do. And love is at the heart of everything you do. It's in the way you work, it's in the way you create and the way you connect with people. You bring warmth and charisma and charm into rooms so naturally. You know how to work a room, you know how to schmooze, you can probably charm the pants off of anyone. Like, you know how to make people feel comfortable and welcome, and you shine most when you're not being forced to underplay that. Your life is meant to have pleasure woven into it. It's meant to have fun and laughter and celebration, not just as an afterthought, but actually part of the experience. And I really feel like for you guys, you know, work itself should be joyful. It should bring you fun experiences. You know, it might be the people you get to meet and connect with, or networking that actually feels exciting instead of draining. It might be opportunities that further fuel your creativity, like courses or events or collaborations or spaces where you're learning and evolving alongside other people who get you. For some of you, it really is a celebration energy, like clinking glasses, winning awards, signing contracts, reaching milestones, and actually being able to stop and enjoy them. There's a lot of like the we did it energy here, so it's like shared success and shared joy. That could be a big part of your work. I'm also getting that you're going to meet a lot of important people through what you do, so some of your closest connections could come through your work or creative pursuits. It's very 7th house coded, partnerships that feel aligned, harmonious, mutually supportive. The people who you choose to work with matter. And this is where I want to kind of slow it down a bit, because this next part really matters. But it's really important for you guys to have people around you who nourish your dreams instead of just tolerating them. You know, people who support your creativity and your artistry and your ideas, rather than people who immediately want to shut them down because they don't understand them. And I don't want to frame this as like, oh, you know, you deserve to just be a trophy wife or husband or someone who just gets bankrolled by their partner. That's not what I'm saying. You know, you are capable, you're intelligent, and you can hold your own, but you do thrive when the people who love you truly believe in you. So like, if you have a business idea or a creative project or something you genuinely love, it feeds your soul when the people closest to you are like, okay, you know, let's talk about how we can make this work, instead of, oh, that's unrealistic, or that's silly, or, you know, why don't you just do something sensible? And obviously there's nuance here, because I know that bills exist, responsibilities exist. If someone like your partner, for example, is apprehensive because they're thinking practically, I'm not saying that automatically makes them a bad person or a villain. Some things need real planning and real conversations. But I'm saying there is a huge difference between somebody being practical with you and somebody being dismissive of you. And you can feel that difference, PAL3, in your body. So you thrive when you're with people who truly see how much love you're willing to pour into something, and they can meet you there. People who will say, I believe in you, or I can see how much this means to you, or I will help if I can. And for some of you, that might look like parents, friends, partners who are willing to invest in your ideas, not just financially, but emotionally. People who have said, you know, I see this as your passion and I want to support you, instead of just, that's impractical, you're on your own. That kind of support does something to you. It helps you trust yourself more, and it helps you grow, and it helps you actually bring things into the world instead of second guessing yourself into paralysis. Because Libra energy at its core, it's about partnership, but it's about balanced partnership. mutual give and take, not losing yourself to keep the peace or not constantly compromising your desires just so everything else stays comfortable. It's about those scales being balanced. And with the Three of Cups, I really feel like you're meant to have people around you who lift you up and who let you lift them up too. It's like mutual hype and mutual celebration, complimenting each other, sharing wins, making each other feel capable of absolutely anything. You might have a really important business partner in your life, someone specific who helps bring those ideas to life, who will balance you out and who believes in your vision even when you wobble. And honestly, you guys truly deserve that. You guys don't thrive in complete isolation. You can be independent, but you do thrive when you have supportive partnerships and connections around you in whatever form they take. You love to exist in spaces where joy is allowed and where the success is shared and where love isn't something you have to beg for or earn. Because when you're in a bad relationship, whether it's romantic, toxic family, toxic friends, the bitterness and the lack of reciprocity that you experience in those situations, whether you're being controlled or criticized, that seeps out into other aspects of your life. And the work you're here to do, you are not meant to be forced into those situations where you have to accept that. What feeds your soul is harmony, but it's not the kind that comes from silencing yourself. It's the kind that comes from being surrounded by people who genuinely want to see you win. So that's what I'm getting for you, pal 3, and that's where I'm going to leave you today, my loves. Thank you so much for spending your time and energy here with me. I really do appreciate it more than you know. If this reading resonated for you, please feel free to like, comment, share, hype, and subscribe, but only if you feel called to do so. It is the best way to support a small channel like me, and on a personal note, it genuinely means a lot to me. Even something as simple as leaving an emoji or telling me which pal you picked really helps. It lets me know that you're here and that you see me and that we're actually connecting, and that matters to me more than you know. With that said, I'm sending you lots of love, take care of yourselves, trust your magic, and I'll see you very soon, pal 3. Hi Pal 4 Collective, if you chose the Everyday Witch Tarot and you chose the Pretzel sticker and you chose Pal 4, you are in the correct place. Welcome to your reading, friends. If you would like a full breakdown of everything this reading will entail, please check out my introduction. I go through absolutely everything there. I will also leave some details in the pinned comment below for your reference. I would recommend checking at least one of those out so you know what to expect from this reading today. Just a very quick reminder before we begin. If you haven't seen my latest community post, please take a moment to check it out. One of the most talented readers in this space, Psychic Siren Tarot, has sadly lost access to her main channel after it was hacked. She is a beautiful soul and I am really devastated for her. I've actually linked her second channel in my community post, so if you feel called to, please go and have a look. Please help raise her up, go and give her some support. I think she could really do with the love right now. With that said, today's reading is titled, What Kind of Work Truly Feeds Your Soul? Career, Passion and Purpose. So just as a very brief recap, this reading is all about nourishment, the kind that sustains you long term. We're looking at what lights you up, what you're naturally good at, and the type of work in the very broadest sense that helps you feel aligned, purposeful, and alive. And honestly, at the heart of this, we're asking, what does your soul love to gobble up like an expertly glazed baked good? For some of you, this may show up through career or creative pursuits. For others, it might speak more to passion, purpose, or the way you show up in the world more generally. There is no pressure here to be anything. This is about understanding what actually feeds you rather than drains you. So with that said, and without any further hesitation, let's have a look at what we pulled for you, pal 4. I'm just going to move your little pretzel to one side for now so we can focus on the cards. So starting over here on the left, from the Archetypes Oracle, we have Poet, Light Attribute, expresses soul insights in symbolic language. Shadow attribute turns a lyric gift to negative or destructive effect. Okay, we could have some writers, some poets, some musicians who chose this pile. Maybe some of you are poets and you don't know it. Clarifying poet, we have the Knight of Pentacles. From the Woodland Warden's Oracle, we have got the Rooster and Sunflower, communication. Somebody could have a loud voice. Clarifying communication, we have the Three of Wands. From the Hecate Oracle, we have got Maiden, renewal and regeneration. And clarifying Maiden, we have got the Four of Wands. Celebrations, events, parties could be relevant, awards. From the Wild Muse Oracle, we have got the Journey, 9th house or Sagittarius energy. That's what journey, traveling makes me think of. Traveling could be a confirmation for somebody. Clarifying the Journey, we have the Page of Pentacles. From the Pearls of Wisdom Oracle, we have got spiritual growth, achieve spiritual liberation and transcend societal norms by breaking away from generational indoctrination. The societal norms thing makes me think of Uranus energy, also makes me think of Aquarius energy. That could be relevant. And clarifying that, we have got the Moon. And from the Blooming Cats Tarot, we have got Virgo, creative, humble, hardworking, shy, uptight, critical. The date's August 23rd to September 22nd. It might be relevant for you guys. Earth placements could be relevant. Mercury, so Virgo and Gemini. The Hermit, Major Arcana card. That could be relevant. Stones are blue sapphire and Amazonite. Colours are brown and green. Lucky numbers are 3, 5, and 6. Flowers are buttercup and aster. So Virgo placements could be relevant for you guys. And clarifying that, we have got the Page of Swords. Nice. Before we get into the reading, I always like to start these off by mentioning the number confirmations that are coming through. So the numbers associated with your astrology card are 3, 5, and 6. And these don't have to resonate for this to be your pile, but if they do, you can take them as an extra little nudge from spirit. So these numbers might show up as a date or a birthday, an age or life path, a month or year, an angel number or synchronicity you've been seeing a lot of, or an astrological house or the sign associated with that house. If there's any other way these numbers apply for you that I haven't mentioned, you could absolutely take that as confirmation too. Obviously, I can't go through absolutely everything, but these are just those little extra nudges and synchronicities. Obviously, we also have Virgo energy coming through strongly here. Now, just FYI, you do not need to be a Virgo for this to be your pile. This card that we're using is more about the archetype and the traits and the energy that you're working with right now. However, if you do have strong Virgo placements or strong 6th house placements, or your Virgo sun, moon, or rising, or something else that's prominent, you can take that as extra confirmation. Virgo season may also be relevant for some of you because Virgo is ruled by Mercury, and I'm also getting a crossover with Gemini energy, like I think I mentioned for some of you. So themes around thinking and learning and communication and just mental processing generally. But again, the astrology confirmations never have to resonate that literally. We are often just using it symbolically here to describe strengths and tendencies and the energy overall surrounding the pile. With that said, pile 4, straight away with the poet clarified by the Knight of Pentacles, I'm getting that you guys genuinely have a way with words. And I don't just mean it like, oh, you're good at writing, which you might be talented at that. But I mean, it's literally like when you speak or write or communicate about anything, it somehow comes up sounding like poetry to people. And what's funny is you guys could be explaining the most mundane thing. You could be talking about like Tesco meal deals or the weather or some random conversation that you had with your manager, and somehow people are sat there like, wow, that was weirdly profound. I wouldn't be surprised if you were known as very articulate from a really early age. Like maybe you learnt to talk and suddenly you were just saying things that made the adults in your life pause for a second and go like, sorry, like where did that come from? There's something about you understanding concepts beyond your years and not just repeating information but actually interpreting it. That is coming through really strongly. So you could be very talented when it comes to critical thinking. I'm also getting something specific about media literacy. And it doesn't have to mean literally for everyone, but it is definitely this vibe of you being able to read between the lines. And the example I'm getting is, you know, when you're studying a poem in English class in school and the teacher's like, okay, so what did the author mean by this? And everyone's groaning and you're like, no, wait, like I get what it's saying. It's actually saying something. That might have been you, but it's not just with poems. It's with anything that uses the brain, like it's with people too. Even when you were young, you might have picked up on hidden meanings in adult conversations, like hidden undertones or the intention behind what's being said. You know, I'm getting an example of where there's like a dirty joke in a show and you laugh and your parents are like, why are you laughing? Like you shouldn't even understand that. But you kind of clocked it anyway. Even if you didn't fully understand it, you could tell it wasn't meant to be taken at face value. It's like you inspect the hidden details, but you're very aware of what's going on around you. And it's funny because I wanted to say when I first saw this poet card, I was like, oh, you have the gift of the gab. And Pal 3 kind of had that energy too. But Pal 3's energy, there was like charm and there was schmoozing. And I'm not saying yours isn't like that, but yours is different in the sense that it's like whatever you say just sounds intelligent. It makes people listen. And you guys, you tend to radiate competence when you talk. People trust you because you somehow make things make sense. Even if somebody doesn't fully understand a topic, when they hear you talking about it, they're like, you know, I might not get it, but they clearly know what they're talking about. I can literally imagine you guys bluffing your way through a job interview, not in a malicious way, but just like being asked questions that you weren't expecting, and then you come up with these answers on the spot, and afterwards you're kind of panicking, like, oh my god, that made zero sense, like I effed that up, but the interviewer's like, wow, they're brilliant, they're so knowledgeable. I'm getting a similar thing with like presentations. I can imagine you guys, you know, maybe not preparing as much as you wanted, let's say, but then you deliver the presentation like it's something you've been rehearsing for weeks. And it's like this Virgo-ish perfectionism might kick in where you're thinking, oh God, I messed that up. Meanwhile, everyone's congratulating you like you just won a flipping BAFTA or something. Sometimes it kind of feels like you're making it up as you go, but it weirdly just works for you because you're adaptable and you're very deliberate with your words. And I'm getting something really specific. This probably won't be for everyone, but take it as confirmation if it is. I'm getting something about little vocalisms, like somebody who hums around the house, or someone who is always making up silly rhymes on the spot, or quoting memes that they've seen, or doing impressions, doing accents, or quoting things in this kind of dramatic or theatrical way. Just being a bit more theatrical when you're comfortable generally, and that's that poet energy too. It's like rhythm and lyricism, and the musicality of language is something I'm getting. So for some of you, music feeds your soul massively. You know, writing lyrics, songwriting, production, rapping, spoken word, slam poetry. But I'm also getting maybe comedy or drama for somebody here. And I know that might actually throw some people off because Virgo stereotypes are always like, oh, Virgo is like the shy little nerd who just corrects your spellings. Which, fair, like some Virgos do give that energy, but they have such a duality because when you're that observant, even if you're not a Virgo, but you have that gift of observation, when you're taking in human behavior like that, Virgo energy, or anyone who possesses that trait, has the very best like roasts. Like Geminis and Sagittariuses get all the credit for clapping back and saying some out-of-pocket one-liners, but Virgo is ruled by Mercury, just like Gemini is. They clock everything. You might just not always reveal it immediately, but Virgo is very skilled at that stuff too. And this is so random, but I'm getting this very clear personal example because my niece is a Virgo and she's 7, and in some ways she is like a stereotypical Virgo. She is very much like a things have to be a certain way, following the rules, but she can also be, when she's comfortable with people, very theatrical. She does these impressions of people that are just so spot on that it's actually scary. Like she captures the essence of somebody, all the tiny details, and she just has me crying laughing because she's basically roasting people without even meaning to. And she can be shy at first, like she can be introverted, but when she decides to perform, she is not holding back. It's like she's been collecting information for months and she's just waiting for the right time to like deploy it against us all. And honestly, that's your energy in a way, powerful. Even if you're not a Virgo, you observe things, you store them, you process, and then when you speak, it really lands. Now, because the poet has a shadow side too, using words in a negative or destructive way, I'm also getting this very important message that words have power. Like you already know language can build, but it can also cut deeply. And I'm going to give another example from my personal life because it's coming through. Like, I have this memory from school where I got in trouble for writing an unkind poem about somebody. This was back in the MSN days and the weird, like, early internet era of people having their own websites where you could, like, sign their guest book, and everyone was so indirect and petty online. And this other pupil had said some unkind things about me. I had said some unkind things back. I took it a little bit too far and I ended up writing this poem and I got in trouble for it. You know, I remember my parents were invited for a meeting. The school like printed the poem out. It was just a whole mess, to be honest. And obviously I got in trouble. Like my mum was really mad. But I'll never forget, like my dad was looking at the poem afterwards because they had given us a copy. My dad is a Capricorn. He has like a very dry sense of humour. He's also like, he will be the type to make a joke in a awkward situation. He's also not really the type to like praise anything for the sake of it. And I remember when he was looking at this poem afterwards, he said, well, at least it rhymes. And it's funny because actually writing is such a passion of mine. But at that time, I was being very petty and destructive with it. But there was still this underlying thing that my dad was identifying of like, okay, well, this actually has potential. Like, you could probably use this for something better than writing a poem like this about somebody else. And I feel like that's a message for you guys. It's like, even when you're not in your higher self, you are still very creative. You still have that like inventiveness. Even if sometimes your idea is a bit stupid, it's an original stupid idea. Do you know what I mean? Like there's something there. And yeah, there is always that destructive side to the poet, as there is with all those archetype cards. And I don't mean that in a moralizing kind of way. But when you've got a gift with language, you know, your words don't just land, they really hit people. They can heal, but they can also wound. And I think you've either experienced that firsthand or you've witnessed it really closely. And the example I'm getting now, it's actually this link to like diss tracks, like diss culture and rap battles. It's that kind of lyrical genius energy where it's really clever and it's sharp, but it can sometimes tip into something darker if it's coming from that destructive place. And I'm thinking actually really clearly of Tupac and Biggie right now. And I want to say this properly because their story gets flattened into like beef when there was so much more to it than that. I'm not simplifying it to that. We all know there were other the people and things involved within that. But bottom line is they were both incredible lyricists with so much depth to their work. You know, Tupac especially had this way of speaking on inequality and survival and identity and pain and politics. He wasn't, you know, just saying things for shock value. He actually had something to say. But he could also be diabolical with words when he wanted to be. There was a ruthlessness to it. But a lot of what he had to say, there was meaning under it. And I just think how tragic that is, you know, when conflict and ego and pressure and everything around it, manipulation even, tips into destruction. We don't just lose people, we lose the important messages. We lose art that never got to be made. We lost two great artists before their time. So for you, Pal 4, I feel like this is a reminder that your gift is powerful, your voice is powerful, and it feeds your soul when you use it in a way that transforms something, not when it just is for the sake of burning everything down. And I feel like the rap example is interesting because I feel like that's a genre of music that is often seen on a very surface level or misunderstood sometimes. I'm thinking actually, I'm sure the very first album I bought with like my own pocket money was Get Rich or Die Trying by 50 Cent. I think I was about 10 when it came out, and I loved that album. I still think it's amazing. I think it's one of the best albums, but I remember my mum overheard it and she ended up taking it off me because understandably some of the language and themes weren't exactly appropriate for a 10-year-old maybe. But I think that's a good example of what I mean, because from the outside people can dismiss rap and hip-hop as just violence or swearing or like a bad influence, like it's all this surface level thing. But if you actually listen, if the words speak to you, if you have literacy to hear what's underneath, there's so much more going on. Yeah, like some rap music is just about money and girls and pew-pews and that side of things, but not all of it. You know, there are themes of poverty and power and resilience and ambition. It's not just noise, it's storytelling. And for you, Pal 4, it feeds your soul when people don't just hear the words, but they understand the layer underneath the words, when they understand the environment something came from, the intention behind it, and the deeper meaning. And this is where that Knight of Pentacles comes in, because it's not just that you guys are talented, you are meticulous with it. Like, you put care into what you do, and it actually feeds your soul to dedicate time to a craft and perfect it. And I just don't think you thrive in environments where you're constantly rushed or pressured. That type of situation where somebody says, like, get it on my desk by 4 p.m, we don't care if it's good, just get it out there. Because you do care if it's good. You're not here to put any old BS into the world. The Knight of Pentacles sometimes gives me an 8 of Pentacles kind of vibe, you know, showing up daily and tending to the work and refining it and improving it. If you were, as just one example, creating music, I can imagine you taking ages on an album because you refuse to have skippable, nondescript, mediocre tracks. Every song has a purpose. Every song needs to do what it's meant to do. So you'd be sat there working at something, perfecting it, and being like, no, something isn't quite right. And then you'll go back and you adjust and you experiment until it's perfect. It has to be just right, or you'd rather not release it. And I actually think a lot of you guys, you thrive with routine, but it's not because you want to be trapped, but because you kind of enjoy consistency as a foundation. So as a whole, you might thrive when you know what you're doing day to day. You can plan, you can feel prepared, rather than having things sprung on you last minute. So like, even if your job involves some kind of variety, like you have to travel, I feel like you guys want to know it's coming. So for example, if you have a conference at the end of the month, that's fine if you can accommodate for that, but you'd prefer that above somebody saying, pack your bags right now, you're flying in 2 hours, that sort of thing. And at the same time though, you do not want stagnation, you do want progression, because you are ambitious. And it's like, once you master one thing, you're very curious about what's next. Routine feeds your soul when you know that it's leading somewhere. Like, if you're doing a course and it's very repetitive, it's fine if it's building towards a larger qualification, like a new skill or a new door opening. But if you're in a job where you've mastered that one role and there's nowhere to go and you're feeling a bit directionless and people around you are saying, great, just do that every single day forever, you will start to feel underappreciated and stifled because you're not meant to stay in just that one lane permanently. You are meant to refine and hone your skills, but then you are meant to expand. It's about quality over quantity, and people who value quantity over quality, you're going to struggle with those people because you're not here to churn things out for the sake of it. You want your work to mean something. Now, with the rooster and sunflower clarified by the Three of Wands, this is where I'm getting the message that it feeds your soul when people are awake enough to hear what you're actually saying. And that's such a funny phrase to use because it's literally, you know, the rooster at dawn, like, oi, new day, let's go, get up. So for some of you, yes, you might be an early riser, or maybe you have, if it's not that, like you have a very specific morning routine that sets you up that you have to do every day. But I see it for the most part as being something more than that. It's kind of symbolic. So you thrive when people actually see your vision, when they understand what you are trying to communicate and when they can read between the lines. Because you're not just communicating what is, you are communicating what could be. You are always looking outward beyond the horizon. You're very future-minded. And I'm getting this sense of frustration that, like, when you're in environments where your message is misunderstood or simplified, or people just don't have the intelligence or the literacy to grasp what you're doing, like they can only interpret things on a surface level, it's like I hear you sighing and saying like, but that's not the point. And sometimes, to be fair, you guys, it's like you don't always let people in until something is fully ready. Like if you're writing a first draft, for example, and someone's hovering over you and they're like, oh, can I see it? You're hiding your screen like, absolutely not. You can see it when it's done. So of course they don't get it yet because they're seeing a half-formed thing. You don't want them to see it in that state. But you're like, trust me, I can see the finished version in my head. I know what I want to do with this. And it feeds your soul to be around people who trust that. People who don't need proof at every single stage and people who don't shut you down mid-process while the thing is still forming. And I'm getting this example, like let's say as just one random example, you are a musician and you work for a record label. It's like you could release your first album and it does amazing and you've clearly mastered that sound. But then for the next album, you're like, right, I want to try something different. I want to experiment. I want to blend genres. I've got a vision. And it feeds your soul if the label is like, you know, we trust you, you've proven yourself, go work, like bring it to us when it's ready. But it might drain you if they're like, I don't know about that. Like, can you just stick to what's safe? Can we maybe hear a sample now to see what you're thinking of? Because you're like, it's not ready yet. You know, the sample won't show you the whole vision. And if they listen too early and they're like, oh, we don't get it. Like, we don't think this is going to be good. You're thinking, of course you don't. Like, I'm still writing it. I'm still putting it together. It's not finished yet. And I'm getting another example, like let's say you write a book and you submit it to a publishing house. You could submit this book about let's say it's a fantasy or something, and it's about a person who falls in love with a frog. I don't fucking know. But you write this book and it has so many layers to it. It's actually genius. But the feedback you get from the publishing house proves that whoever has consumed it hasn't actually understood it. So they just get back to you with a rejection and they're like, do you know, we're kind of bored of frog romance. Like, frog romance has been done. And you're sat there like, this isn't just a spicy book about frogs, Susan. Like, this is about politics and it's about identity and culture and transformation. It's paying homage to Kafka's Metamorphosis. Like, please, Susan, I need you to understand this. And that's the point, you know, it doesn't feed your soul when people only see that surface level and they miss the depth, when they can't read between the lines, when they're shutting down something that's actually very layered and meaningful. And yeah, it's making me think of that rap example we gave, like people stereotyping it as just like violence or just a bad influence, but there are so many deeper themes at play in lyricism. And also there's like different times and places for different things. Like sometimes you want a more melancholic or reflective track, and sometimes you want Megan Thee Stallion making you feel like you could deadlift a car in the gym. Like there's a time and a place for everything. And for you, Pal 4, it feeds your soul when people respect the art form for what it is and they respect your message for what it is instead of dismissing it because they don't get it. And just with this rooster theme, because you guys know I have chickens and I have to bring my chicken metaphors into everything. You know, I can't resist that. So I have rescue hens and I looked after a rooster at one point. Couldn't keep him where I live, sadly, so he did get rehomed. But when he was coming of age and finding his voice, he would crow multiple times a day. People think roosters only crow in the morning. They do not. Or at least he didn't. And I remember getting quite stressed because of the neighbours. And every time I saw his chest puff up, I'd be like, oh God, here we go. And I'd almost want to jump in like, no, shh, which is ridiculous because he's a rooster. That's literally what he's here to do. He's here to crow. He's here to announce himself, to say like, I'm here to alert the flock. And I'm getting that as a metaphor for you. Like, you do not thrive in environments where you're meant to use your voice, where your ideas are meant to be heard, and people immediately try to shut you down like you're being annoying for having vision. Like, you start talking about your new idea and people roll their eyes like, oh, here we go again. No, you're meant to explore, you're meant to go beyond the horizon. You're meant to venture into new territory and bring something back from it. And it feeds your soul when you're around people who respect that rather than treating your ambition like it's a burden. Now, Maiden, clarified by the Four of Wands, is a very interesting pairing because when I first saw these cards together, I wasn't confused, but I was a bit like, oh, with the Four of Wands, like maybe the mother or crone archetype would make more sense because the maiden in and of itself can be about like youth and discovery and trial and error, whereas the Four of Wands is more about like stability and home and belonging and milestones. So I was kind of like, how do these things go together? And then it hit me like, this actually makes perfect sense for you, because what feeds your soul is autonomy within a safe context. So you guys, you want the freedom and you want the experimentation and the new beginnings, but you do need to be welcomed while you do it. You need to feel like you belong in this space that you're exploring. So this is about being in an environment where your ideas are allowed to be in draft form, where you are allowed to experiment and try things, and maybe there is a bit of trial and error, and people don't make you feel stupid for it or like your ideas are a lost cause. You know, when you're in a meeting at work, instead of you opening your mouth and everyone sighing, like, oh, what now? They're actually excited, like, go on then, what are you thinking? Like, your ideas are important. We want to hear them. You don't do well when you are silenced. Or when people try and keep you in a box, like, oh, why can't you just stick with what you're good at? Because you need that childlike wonder. You need that maiden voyage energy. You know, literally that phrase came through for you, like the first journey, the exploration, the discovery, the maiden voyage. And I'm getting kind of like a coming of age metaphor too, like teenagers and autonomy, that tension between needing guidance and also yearning for freedom. Like a child or a teenager might say to their parent, you know, do I have to be walked to school or can you trust me? Can I have privacy or do I have to keep my bedroom door open? What is my curfew? Does it have to be 9 p.m. or does it have to be 10 p.m? And when you're a teenager, it can feel suffocating if, you know, all of your friends have these freedoms and you don't. It feels like you're not trusted. And that is you in work environments too. You need trust, you need space. You don't need somebody up your ass micromanaging you, questioning every decision and hovering over you like an overbearing parent. Because you are competent and you're a fast learner. Like if someone gives you a stack of tasks and explains it once, you're good. Like, if they leave you alone, you can get it done. You could happily work independently, probably for months on end, perfecting something, building something, making it perfect. You can deliver on that. But if someone's constantly nitpicking and checking and breathing down your neck, it kind of brings out that like surly teenager energy in you where you're like, I need you to back up before you make me irrationally angry. And it's not because you're childish, but it's because you need to be trusted as your own independent entity. There's something here as well about work that keeps you young, and that can mean a few different things, but some of you, especially with the Virgo and 6th house themes coming through, some of you guys need that routine for your well-being. So, you know, maybe that looks like not working chaotic shifts that ruin your sleep cycle. Maybe it's not overworking and burning out. Basically, it feeds your soul when you can clock out and you can stick to your little routines and you can keep your body regulated and keep your nervous system happy. Maybe it's like you get the opportunity to work from home and you can use your walking pad while you're on your laptop answering emails, just integrating health into your workday. But I am also hearing, don't let the routine make you become this grumpy little grandma or grandpa before your time, because you don't have to be an earth placement, but I'm not gonna lie, earth placements can do that. And I say that with love because I'm a Taurus moon, so I can definitely be like set in my ways when it comes to routine. I actually remember once I was at a uni party when I was at uni, and I was a little bit older than most of the people on my course. Most of them were like 18, 19, 20. I went back to uni a little bit later, so I was like early to mid 20s, I think. So I wasn't noticeably older as in like to look at, but in terms of like phases in life. Like, I already had a house and a job and pets to look after, so it was a little bit different. Like, they were more in the partying stage, which is absolutely fine. That's what you're meant to do when you're 18, 19, 20. And I did go to parties and stuff, but I didn't do it all the time. But what's interesting is I was at this party and we were playing this drinking game, and I think it was something like, who is most likely to XYZ, and whoever got the most votes on a particular question would have to do a shot, something like that, right? And there was all these fun questions, and then this question came up that was like, who is most likely to be in bed at 9 p.m. on a Friday night, or something like that, and they all voted for me. And I wanted to be offended by that, but then I was like, no, that's actually pretty correct, like that's pretty accurate, because a lot of the time they would message at like 8 p.m. and they'd be like, oh, do you want to do pre-drinks in an hour? And I'd be like, pre-drinks at 9 p.m? Like, I am already in bed, I've done my skincare, I'm watching a documentary, like, have fun, but no, like, I cannot fathom getting up at this ungodly hour. And yes, I was still in my early 20s, but spiritually I was a grandmother. So if that's you, maybe the message is, you know, the work that feeds your soul keeps you a bit more flexible, like keeps you fresh, keeps you learning, keeps you open, because you don't want to become stagnant or set in your ways or refusing anything unfamiliar. And that ties so neatly into the journey clarified by the Page of Pentacles, because again, that gives me those Sag 9th house kind of vibes as a metaphor. So exploration, higher learning, broadening horizons. And for some of you, it could be literal travel too, because the Page of Pentacles is like that tangible, hands-on experience, real world experience. Something about you guys, it feeds your soul when you can learn by doing. Like, sometimes you guys need to be up close and personal with things to fully digest them. So for some of you, that could be like huge trips, like going to Bali and visiting temples and going on spiritual retreats. And for others of you, it could be more local things, like just physically going somewhere, seeing something firsthand, getting involved in a way that expands your perspective in some way. Let's say you are a writer from the northwest of England. I'm from the northwest of England, so I'm just using that as an example. You could write characters from that culture flawlessly because you live in it every day. You understand the rhythm, the humour, the behaviour, the little details. But then let's say you understand that really well and you can write about that perfectly, but you want to write about something different for your next book, maybe a different culture or setting. And maybe it's somewhere where like you visited or you've travelled on holiday, but you don't have that same day-to-day integration. So to do it properly, you feel like you need to go and be there, like live there and work there, and get close enough to capture the details respectfully, you know, in a way that's appreciating, not cultural appropriation. And you want to actually hear how people from that culture want their stories told, you know, what outsiders typically get wrong, because you're someone who notices the details and honours them because you know they matter. And honestly, as somebody who loves to read and write myself, I fully get that, because nothing takes me out of a story faster. Like, I can get over many things in a story, like spelling mistakes, grammar mistakes, they don't really bother me all that much. But when something so unrealistic happens to the point where, what's the word for like, not immerses, it de-immerses me. That's not a word, but like it takes me out of the story. I'm not immersed. And I'm like, no, that wouldn't play out like that. It takes away from a little bit of the enjoyment. Like, I was reading a book recently and I did enjoy the book overall, but there were certain things where I picked up on these details that made me lose that sense of immersion, because the book was set in pretty much the current day and it was in my country. And I've worked in schools before, so I have that experience, and the way the school in this book handled something in the plot was just so unrealistic. And I just kept thinking, like, oh, why are they doing this? Like, this will be a massive safeguarding issue. And I can suspend disbelief, especially in genres that require it. Like, if it's a fantasy or something, I know not everything's going to be realistic, but when it is meant to be realistic and the research isn't there, it breaks the spell. And the point is, you guys, it feeds your soul when you care about the realism and the detail and the integrity of a story, even in fiction, because it's hard to be emotionally moved by something if your brain keeps putting the logic in and being like, oh, that couldn't happen. Well, that couldn't happen anyway, so this doesn't seem real. And another example I'm getting, like, if you were advocating for a certain charity, you might be the kind of person who actually goes and experiences the reality of something, like working with underprivileged kids or an animal rescue, whatever it is you're doing, and then you come back and report on it in a way that's very visceral and it's emotive and detailed, and it actually moves people. it convinces people. Like, you speak to empathy through being specific, you know, even local things like mental health advocacy, like interviewing people, learning the landscape of certain services. You're very good at gathering real information and translating it in a way that lands. You could be very good at like journalism. And then I'm getting this really clear point as well, like it's like the difference between a journey and a climb. You know, this thing that feeds your soul, it's not like, do you know when you go and visit the Eiffel Tower, you're just there to look at the Eiffel Tower, so you're just plodding up the steps and you're essentially bored until you get that view at the top. Whereas your journey and what feeds your soul, powerful, this is meant to be like a winding mountain journey. You are meant to stop, you are meant to pitch a tent, you're meant to learn things in different terrains. You know, whether it's snow or beach or forest, you're meant to learn about different atmospheres and different skills and different experiences. And each one adds something new to your toolkit. And that's where your genius comes from, because you take all these different pieces of information and you can blend them into something new. You're not just like collecting experiences for the sake of it and they don't just exist in a vacuum. It's like you're collecting ingredients and later you mix them into something nobody else could make because they didn't take that same route and they didn't take that same time to have stops along the way. And the thing is, this winding mountain I'm seeing, it's still going up. It's still going up and up and up, like reaching the top, just in a way that is not just focused on that Eiffel Tower climb, if that makes sense. Now, with spiritual growth, clarified by the moon, this is that existential feeling of like there has to be more to life than just this. It's growth outside the box. It's being okay with not knowing and still exploring anyway. And it's funny because often I feel like as humans, when we're younger, when we're kids, when we're teenagers, when we're young adults, even when we are insecure deep down, sometimes we can have this weird arrogance where we think we know absolutely everything. You know, we don't want advice, we don't listen, we feel like we've got it all figured out. And then as we get older and we actually become more secure, we hit this more humbling stage where we're like, oh my God, like I actually don't know anything at all. And it's disconcerting, but it's also liberating because that's where the real learning begins. And I think for you, Pal 4, part of spiritual growth is accepting that you don't need certainty to move. You are here to break patterns and unlearn conditioning and question things that you were taught and be open to new downloads, even if you have to kind of tiptoe out of the comfort zone slowly. And that's why you stay young in spirit, because you are not rigid. You're not that person who goes, I don't need to learn that. You don't let insecurity stop you. And I'm getting this example, it's like an example to do with technology. So you know when older people refuse to learn on their own terms how to rotate a PDF or copy someone into an email, and they act like even learning that would be humiliating or it's something they don't even need to know. But actually learning it would give them autonomy. They wouldn't have to ask somebody else to do it for them. They wouldn't have to rely on anyone. It would free them. And often that refusal is insecurity. It's, you know, somebody saying, you know, it's scary that this younger person who's been doing the job for less time than me knows more than me, or my child that I raised knows more than me about tech. But you don't do that. You're like, I might be confused about this, I might be a bit wobbly to start with, but I'm open to it, like teach me. And that's why your work stays fresh and current, and that's why you can keep up with the times. You keep learning and you stay adaptable. You don't get stuck in this idea of like, this is how it's always been done, so I don't need to know anything else. And finally, with Virgo clarified by the Page of Swords, I'm getting something about a really sharp and active and restless mind. You guys could be very, very quick thinking. Your mind is always running. It's like you need to be mentally fed. You need to question things. You're probably someone who's always asked why, not to be difficult, but because you genuinely need to understand how things work. And you guys learn fast. Like sometimes you can watch someone do something once and then you're like, right, my turn. And then you just pick up on it. Like you absorb knowledge like a sponge. And then later you'll remember some like random tiny detail you didn't even realize you clocked. And it'll like pop up in a dream or in a little mental download. And suddenly something just clicks. You take things in from the edges first is something I'm getting. So there's something about observing and then later integrating once you've got the lay of the land. It's like then you will dive in hands-on. That Page of Pentacles we talked about earlier supports that as well. Like your learning starts in the mind, but it needs to be grounded through the senses. So touch, taste, hearing, seeing it with your own eyes, that's really important for you guys. And because you take in so much, you do need to be cautious of overstimulation. So it feeds your soul to also have that decompression time. You know, I think time alone is probably very important for you guys, time to process. You can absolutely work in groups, but I think too many overlapping voices or too much sensory input can kind of fry you a little bit. You might do best observing the group dynamics, collecting information, and then going away and integrating it more privately, and then coming back with something refined. I can see you as an excellent teacher, a guide or a lecturer, a person on a podium saying, you know, here's what I learned through my experience, and people are taking notes because you are able to contextualize things so clearly. You translate complexity into something very understandable. You can make the mundane meaningful. And with those Virgo and 6th house themes, I also get potential links to the wellness industry, being of service, improving systems, improving efficiency, updating processes, helping things run better, even sciencey things explained in a way people can more readily understand. You're the person who goes like, here's what's wrong and here's how we fix it, here's how we make it better. And you do that with thoughtfulness and precision. You don't gloss over important details. There is no stone unturned with you, Pal 4. So overall, Pal 4, what feeds your soul is meaningful communication, meticulous craft, and continual expansion. You guys need a life where you're allowed to explore without being rushed or without being micromanaged and without being dismissed. You're here to refine and then you're here to expand. You're here to gather experiences and then translate them into something really, really powerful. You're here to use your voice in a way that wakes people up, like a rooster wakes people up at dawn. Even if some people want to shout out the window and tell you to shut up, you are not here to shut up. You're here to create and to interpret and to question and to teach what you've learned, one carefully chosen word at a time. So that's what I'm getting for you, Pal 4, and that's where I'm going to leave you today, my loves. Thank you so much for spending your time and energy here with me. I truly appreciate it more than I can put into words. If this reading resonated for you, please feel free to like, comment, hype, share, and sub, only if you feel called to. It is the best way to support a small channel like mine, and honestly, on a personal level, it really means the world to me. Even something as simple as leaving an emoji or letting me know which pal you chose really, really makes a difference. It really helps. It reminds me that you're here, that this landed for you, and that we are actually connecting, and that matters far more to me than you could ever know. With that said, I love you lots, take care of yourselves, trust your journey, and I'll see you very soon, Pal 4. Hi Pal 5 Collective, if you chose the Cute Ghost Tarot and you chose this, is it a cheesecake? I wanted to say cheesecake, but now I think it might actually be a lemon meringue pie. If you picked this cake/pie sticker, looks delicious whatever it is, and you chose Pal 5, you are in the right place. Welcome to your reading, friends. If you would like a full breakdown of everything this reading will entail, please check out my introduction. I go through absolutely everything there. I will also leave some details in the pinned comment below for your reference. I would recommend checking at least one of those out so you know what to expect from this reading today. Just a quick reminder before we begin, if you have not seen my latest community post, please take a moment to check it out if you can. One of the most talented readers in this space, Psychic Siren Tarot, has sadly lost access to her main channel after it was hacked. She is a beautiful soul and I am truly devastated for her. I have actually linked her second channel in the community post. So if you feel called, please go have a look and help raise her up. I think she could really do with the support and love right now. Thank you very much. With that said, today's reading is titled, What Kind of Work Truly Feeds Your Soul? Career, Passion and Purpose. This reading is all about nourishment, the kind that sustains you long term. We're looking at what lights you up, what you're naturally good at, and the type of work in the very broadest sense that helps you feel aligned, purposeful and alive. And honestly, at the heart of it, we are asking, what does your soul love to gobble up like an expertly glazed baked good? For some of you, this may show up through career or creative pursuits. For others, it might speak more to passion, purpose, or the way you show up in the world more generally. There is no pressure here to be anything. This is about understanding what actually feeds you rather than drains you. So with that said, and without any further hesitation, let's have a look at what we pulled for you today at Pal 5. I'm just going to move your cheesecake/lemon meringue pie to one side for now so we can focus on the cards in front of us. So starting over here on the left from the Archetypes Oracle, we have got Vampire. Maybe some of you guys work the night shift. Do you guys like garlic? Just asking. Light attribute, making you aware that someone or something is draining your life force. Okay, interesting. Shadow attributes, depleting others for your psychic survival, chronic complaining and codependency. And clarifying vampire, we have got the Three of Cups. From the Woodland Wardens, we have got the Otter and Cattail piece. Interesting combination of cards so far. And clarifying piece, we have got the Four of Wands. Cool. From the Hecate Oracle, we have got Empowerment, Welcome the Shadow. Welcome the Shadow showing up with Vampire. I think they're trying to tell us something, Pal 5. Clarifying Welcome the Shadow, we have the Ace of Swords. From the Wild Muse Oracle, we have got Hope on the Horizon. That reminds me of the Star card, just the imagery. And I guess the star is all about hope, so that's really cool. Some of you guys, your connection to divinity, your faith is really, really strong. Clarifying that, we have got Enlightenment. Yeah, definitely divine energy. From the Pearls of Wisdom Oracle, we have got Neptune, Piscean energy. Prominent Neptune placements could be relevant. You guys sort of give me like a muse-like energy as well. Trust in the divine plan and surrender to the understanding that all things are working together for our greatest good. 12th house placements as well could be relevant. Clarifying Neptune, we have the Ace of Cups. Deeply connected to your emotions, I would imagine. And from the Blooming Cat Tarot, we have got Cancer. Imaginative, loyal, caring, moody, sensitive, complicated. Relevant dates are June 21st to July 22nd. Element is water, so water placements could be relevant. Scorpio, Pisces, Cancer. Ruling planet is the moon, prominent moon placement. Major arcana card is the Chariot. Stones are ruby and moonstone. Colours are blue and silver. Lucky numbers are 2, 7 and 9. I also want to add 4 to that because Cancer is usually connected with the 4th house. Flowers, lily and white rose. And clarifying Cancer, we have got the 8 of Pentacles. Nice. So I always like to start off these readings by mentioning the numbers on the cards. These numbers may resonate for you as dates, ages, birthdays, life path numbers, angel numbers, recurring synchronicities, astrological houses, or signs associated with those houses, or they might not resonate at all. Take them as gentle confirmation rather than something you need to force meaning onto. But we have the numbers 2, 7 and 9. I mentioned 4 as well as potentially being relevant. You guys may also notice connections to Cancer season, lunar cycles or moon related themes. And just as a reminder, I've mentioned this in all the other piles, but the Cancer card here, it's not saying that you have to be a Cancer or have prominent Cancer placements in your chart. This astrology card is more here to represent an archetype and an energetic pattern. It's not a requirement, so you do not need to be a Cancer, but if you do have prominent Cancer or moon placements in your chart, you can take that as extra confirmation. I don't know why I want to mention this, but did some of you rewatch Twilight recently? Wasn't it some kind of anniversary for one of the Twilight films? It might have been the first film, because I know they were playing it at like one of my local cinemas, so that might be relevant for somebody. Maybe somebody used to really love Twilight. But yeah, right at the core of your reading, we've got that vampire archetype clarified by the 3 of Cups. I'm not even gonna lie, this is such a layered card for you guys. I mean, vampires are spooky, and yes, there could be something literal here for some of you. I think I mentioned night shifts, you know, sleep being a bit all over the place, circadian rhythms being off, vivid dreams, sleep paralysis, weird dream symbolism. That could be something you guys deal with, especially because we mentioned like dreaminess and Neptune in the 12th house as well. As some of you guys, it could be literally like you get your best ideas at night. Some of you could be the types to be awake at like 4 a.m. or just wake up at 4 a.m. having a full-on download moment, and suddenly you're like up writing and researching and you have all these spiraling thoughts. Sort of like your brain is genius mode when the rest of the world is asleep, that kind of vibe. But I'm also getting, you know, that fun pop culture side of vampires too. So vampire media could be significant. So I'm thinking like True Blood, The Vampire Diaries, Interview with a Vampire, Dracula, Nosferatu. I'm also getting Sinners as well, which I loved Sinners. It was probably one of my favourite films of last year. But beyond, you know, the aesthetics and stuff like that, I've always found vampire lore interesting because it's never just about a creature. It's always about what the creature represents. And just FYI, I think I've mentioned this in my readings before, I feel like I'm going to be oversharing a lot with this part. Like, I just have the urge to open up to you guys. And I do give my personal experiences, but I'm already feeling like I could talk to you guys forever. So I really love that energy. But yeah, I think I've mentioned before, I love spooky things. I love paranormal stuff, hearing about people's experiences. If you ever have an experience like that, please feel free to share it in the comments. Like, anything spooky or like alien encounters or things like that. But yeah, I love folklore. I love listening to paranormal TikToks. I don't have TikTok, but I listen to it on YouTube ages after. I love stories about Appalachia and New Orleans and the vampire tales and just all of it. And I think, you know, even if you don't believe in any of that in the literal sense, I think the stories passed down say so much about human fear, and that in turn says a lot about our psychology as humans. Like the monsters we create, again, if you don't believe those monsters are real, they are often manifestations of our own shadows and our collective trauma. And I remember actually doing a presentation about Dracula, and the theme we were focusing on was how Dracula was symbolic of like Victorian fears around disease and contagion and like bloodborne illness and foreigners, like moral panic as well, all of that. Like fiction mirrors real anxieties of what's going on in a society at the time. You know, myth is built out of that real fear. And you know, this card, even if you don't believe in literal vampires, we have all met the archetype of the vampire. We've all met someone who drains the life force out of us just by being around them. And with the Three of Cups clarifying it, this is very specifically about people, about social spaces, about group dynamics, work environments, friendships, anywhere there's a constant emotional or energetic exchange. And the thing with you, Pal 5, is you guys don't just clock behavior, you also clock the why something is. You understand subtext. It's like, you know, in Pal 4 we mentioned media literacy, and it's a similar thing coming through here, but more about like emotions and the way people work. Like some people, in terms of picking out subtext, they will read a book like Dracula and they will say it's about vampires. And other people read the same book and they will say it's about disease, it's about power and repression in the modern world versus the traditional world, and it's about fear of the unknown and morality and spirituality and the threat of the outsider. And both of those things are technically true, but you are the person who naturally sees that deeper layer, especially when it comes to humans. You understand other people's shadows without even trying. Like, you can interact with someone once and it just clicks. Like, oh, that's why you're like that. But it's not even in a judgmental way, it's just this instinctual thing. You see how everything links to everything else. So, you know, if a friend comes to you and they're like, oh, my partner just completely blew up at me because I forgot to text them back when my plane landed. It feels like such an overreaction, I just don't get it. You're the one who immediately starts connecting the dots. You're the one who's like, wait, didn't you tell me that their parent died in a plane crash when they were a kid? And suddenly the whole thing makes sense. It's not just about somebody forgetting to text back, it's about fear, it's about trauma, it's about safety. And to you, that link is so obvious, but to other people, it isn't. Like, they don't put two and two together. Obviously, that's just one random example. It won't be that one for you. But this is why you're so gifted at giving good advice, by the way, because again, you don't just react to like the surface level situation, you see what's underneath it. You understand people to the point where sometimes, I'm not going to lie, you want to save them. Like, you can feel what they're hungry for. You can feel what they need. You pick up on energies so intensely, it borders on like physically painful at times. I'm definitely getting somebody who has maybe experienced hyper empathy, high EQ that's coming through. You could be that person who's like, you know, I heard about something happening on the other side of the world and now it has ruined the rest of my day because I can imagine how that feels. That kind of super sensitivity. And this is where that vampire energy can become a double-edged sword, because it's a gift, absolutely. You have healing energy, Pal 5. You have nurturing energy, caretaker energy. It feeds your soul to help, to be of service to others, to comfort and to connect, to be the person who knows the right thing to say, to show up in these ways that actually make a difference. You've probably had people say things to you like, oh, nobody understands me like you do. And as much as that can feel heavy, it can also feel really beautiful, because when connection is based on love, that bond feels nourishing. You see people improve because of something you said or did or helped with. You can literally witness the impact of your care in the real world, and that's meaningful to you. But the curse side of it is how lonely it can be when that level of care isn't mirrored back. And I'm getting this random example, like, let's say somebody you care about has lost a pet, and you could send them like the most heartfelt message, the kind of message that makes them sit there with goosebumps afterwards, and you get them this really heartfelt gift because you knew exactly what they needed in that moment, and you comforted them and you showed up for them. And then when your pet passes, maybe they send you something and they're like, oh no, I'm really sorry about that. So are you going to get a new cat then? It's not that they are evil. It's not that they don't care. It's that they don't get you. They don't understand how deeply you love, how much you feel. And that disconnect can feel genuinely offensive because you don't want to have to explain what you need. You want someone to just show up and see you the way that you would see them. And when they can't, it feels like being profoundly unseen and lurking in the shadows and existing there. And I feel like this is where the vampire and the Three of Cups message becomes very real. You know, it doesn't feed your soul to be the emotional glue in every single room. It doesn't feed your soul to be the one doing the regulating and the nurturing and the comforting and the holding it all together while you quietly burn out. And if your work, as in your actual job, is doing anything public facing, frontline care, healthcare, customer service, being the first point of contact, this can be felt on a whole different level because, you know, if you've ever worked with the public, you already know what I mean. People forget that you're human. And again, I want to share this example from my own life. I'm getting the urge to do that really strongly. So I worked as a first point of contact at a GP surgery, and honestly, it was probably one of the worst jobs I've ever done for that kind of specific energy drain. And it's not because people didn't have a right to be frustrated, they absolutely did, but it was a lot. And a lot of people treated me like I wasn't even a person. And, you know, I want to just be clear here, like, I know people have bad experiences with receptionists and healthcare workers and things like that. Like, that is valid. I know anyone in any role like that can be absolutely rude and dismissive sometimes, and of course that deserves criticism. I've experienced that too because I'm also a patient. I also receive healthcare. I've dealt with bad healthcare workers and receptionists, but it is never an excuse, in my opinion, to scream at someone, to curse at them, to threaten them, or to treat them like they are not a human being. And I just want to say, like, when I was in that role, I always tried to make the effort. I'm not saying I was 100% perfect, but I always tried to make the effort to, even on my worst days, speak to people the way I would want to be spoken to. And I will say a lot of the time I was often, and not just me, like, I mean anyone who works in that role, we are often not given that same thought in return. You know, people excuse patient behaviour and they say, like, well, you know, they're scared, they're in pain, they can't get an appointment, this is stressing them out. And I completely get it, because I have been on the other side of that. I know what it's like to be a patient and be scared and frustrated and in pain and feel like no one's listening. It's still not an excuse to threaten someone's life. People forget too, you know, the person behind that desk who they're dealing with, who they're yelling at, probably also has their own health issues, their own pain, their own life, their own struggles. That is not exclusive to anyone. They probably can't get an appointment at their own doctor because they're too busy being at work being yelled at. And I remember this one time, this girl came in and she already actually had an appointment. I was literally just checking her in. Should have been like a 10-second interaction, just ask for the full name, date of birth, basic stuff. But she came to the desk already very, very hostile, and she like yelled her name at me, but it was only her first name. So I'm trying to ignore the tone, and I'm just like, yep, and your surname, please. I'm just trying to like keep it moving because there's a line. And she screamed her surname right in my face with so much vitriol that it genuinely felt like she hated me personally, like she had hatred in her face and in her eyes. Or that's how it seemed to me. So I asked her, because I was genuinely confused. I was like, is there a reason you're screaming at me? Like, have I done something? Because I'm thinking maybe she booked the appointment over the phone with somebody else and that person was rude to her and maybe she thinks it's me. So I want to understand what's happened. And she shouts, I'm just having a bad day, okay? And I'm like, all right, fair enough, like take a seat, because, you know, at least she was honest. But there's this part of you, if you work in that kind of field where you've dealt with that, where you just want to yell back at the person and say, do you think I'm having a good day? Like, I have been spat at, yelled at, sworn, threatened like 5 times in the last hour alone. Like, I am no stranger to a bad day, trust me. But in that role, you are expected to mask it. You're expected to be professional and to absorb it. You're expected to show compassion even when people can't show it to you. And over time, that wears you down, because when people are in pain, sometimes they behave like only their pain matters, only their pain is valid. And you're the opposite, like you will ignore your own pain and put theirs first. You tell yourself you can deal with it. You've been dealing with it forever. And that's why it drains you, because you are built to care, but that kind of environment takes and takes and takes, and it doesn't let you replenish. I'm also getting another example of the same workplace, and there is a reason I want to tell this story, so please bear with me. I'll try and make it a quick one. But I was speaking to a woman on the phone this time who was very upset and angry over a situation. The situation wasn't to do with me, wasn't caused by me, but obviously I was the person on the phone, so she kind of had to go through me, and I understand that. And I tried to do what I always tried to do, which was to listen when I can tell that somebody wants to be heard. So I let her speak, I tried not to interrupt, and I know that's like the bare minimum. I don't expect any praise for that, but we did get a lot of pressure from management to be as efficient and quick as possible on the phone, like get someone off the phone as quick as possible, because there was a whole queue of people waiting, and like the phone never stopped ringing. the lines were busy all day. But I did really think it was important that she felt heard, because clearly she had felt like nobody was listening to her. So when she had finished speaking about a particular thing, I initially tried to reassure her just by saying something like, you know, I hear you, I understand how difficult this must be. And then she got really, really, really angry at me for that and interrupted me to tell me that I don't understand, I could never understand, and how dare I say that, how dare I imply that I could possibly understand, like I have no idea what it's like, etc, etc. So I thought, okay, this tactic isn't landing, let's try something solution orientated. But she would not let it go. She kept bringing it back to like, no, how dare you say you could possibly understand? How dare you say that to me? And I got to a point, and this is maybe where I was a little bit unprofessional, I got to a point where I was so done with people treating me like I wasn't human that my professional mask kind of slipped, and I said something like, I understand because I have the same condition. So the things you're talking about, yes, I understand them very well. And she was shocked. She didn't apologise, nor did I expect her to, but she was taken aback, I think, and she immediately kind of changed tactic. And what I found so interesting about that was, and the reason why I'm sharing it with you, is because it was so fascinating to me that she hadn't even considered it was possible. Like, she turned me into such a non-human entity in her mind that it didn't even cross her mind that I might also be in pain, that I might also be managing something. And she was like, oh. And when she said, oh, it was almost like, oh, wait, like, are you not a robot? Like, what do you mean I'm not complaining to AI here? Like, you're a person? It's like she was shocked by that. And that's such a vampire archetype moment, you know, people dumping on you because they don't see you as a whole person, people taking because they can, people assuming you are there to absorb. And I think this is why the vampire comes up for you, Pal 5, because you already live with this awareness that words and actions have power. And I think the way we interact with people can heal them, or it can have the potential to tip them over the edge. And I always say, like, you genuinely don't know what someone is going through. I would always rather be the stranger who smiles at someone and who compliments them and gives them that tiny moment of like, maybe the world isn't all bad, than be the person who makes their day worse, because you just never know who's close to that edge. But the thing that matters is that doesn't mean that you're meant to be in take environments all the time. It doesn't feed your soul to be surrounded by these energy vampires, people who will happily drain you but never replenish you, people who take your compassion for granted, people who outsource responsibility on you, and people who make you feel like you have to mother grown adults or raise grown adults, regulate grown adults, carry grown adults. It's not fair. You know, you have to have balance, you have to have some level of detachment, and I know that's hard, and I know that word is probably making some of you roll your eyes, because you guys, like, when you love intensely. When you care with your whole chest. You know, it can be all or nothing sometimes. And I'm not here to try and give you that annoying, like, just detach rhetoric like it's easy. It isn't. I get that. Like, it's a daily practice and it's a healing journey. And I'm thinking of even my own example, because I definitely recognize myself in this. And I keep being called to share these personal examples, and I don't know why. Something about you guys' energy just makes me kind of open up. But I took one of my dogs to the vet recently, and I was talking to my partner afterwards because we haven't been to the vets in a long time and there seemed to be some new staff. And the receptionist we were speaking to was lovely. Like, she was really making a fuss of my dog and giving her treats, well, trying to anyway. My dog wasn't feeling very great, so she wasn't her usual treat devouring self. But yeah, like, afterwards I was saying to my partner, oh, they've got some really friendly staff here. And then I happened to say, like, oh, I'd love to work at the vets, it must feel amazing to help animals every day. And my partner was like, no, you wouldn't. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I care about animals, I think I'd be good at that. And he says, yeah, that's exactly why you wouldn't want to. You'd get too emotionally invested, you would want to save them all, and you can't save them all. You'd be devastated all the time, and if you saw someone, like, mistreating an animal, you'd probably try and steal it and bring it home, and we'd end up with like 100 more animals. And he was absolutely right, and that's the double-edged sword. Like, caring makes you incredible at certain work and certain environments and certain roles, but without boundaries and support, it can also become a liability to your nervous system because you feel it too much and you carry it and you take responsibility for things that were never yours to carry. And that's the deepest message of this pairing here. You know, what feeds your soul isn't not being around people to protect your energy. Yes, you might need to do that sometimes, but we know that's not possible 100% of the time. But it's about reciprocity. It's being in social spaces where the emotional exchange feels mutual, where you can lean on someone too, where you're not the one holding everything together, where you're not the one constantly giving and giving and giving and then going home and feeling hollow because nobody's got anything to give to you. Because when the Three of Cups is healthy, it's celebration and it's community and it's chosen family and it's shared joy. But when it's unhealthy with the vampire energy, it's you, again, trying to be that emotional glue, the healer, the steady one, the supporter, the one who has to remain the strong one while quietly burning out behind the scenes. So Pile 5, what this is asking for before we even get into the what does feed your soul part, is you getting really honest about what drains you and who drains you and what kind of environments drain you, not because you are cold and you're trying to shut all of it out, not because you're selfish or anything like that, not because you don't care, but because you actually care so much that you need that protection, you need that replenishment, and you need spaces that nurture you back. And when you're in those right spaces, the spaces and people that actually see you and value you and respect you and reciprocate, your empathy doesn't become a wound, it becomes your gift again. But for you guys, it can be so incredibly challenging to reach that place of detachment, that place that people love to preach about. It kind of seems like this far off concept for you guys. It could be something you're still working on, and I'm right there too, so I understand, because someone will be like, oh, well, just do a job you're not that invested in, like just do something you don't care about and then you won't get so emotionally involved. And you're like, babes, that does not work for me. Like, you have to do something that actually means something. It has to resonate with your soul. And even if you don't enjoy every single minute of it, even if it's stressful sometimes, even if there are hard days, you still need there to be parts of it that feel joyful and meaningful and worth it. And I'm getting some specific examples here, like even if some elements of a job drain you, sometimes other things make it worthwhile. So for example, if you're like, you know, the job is hard sometimes, but the people I work with are amazing, they make it worthwhile because those people see you and they appreciate you and they give back to you. So even when it's hard, you're like, I would still choose this vocation a million times over because yes, it takes from me, but it gives back in a different way. And that isn't me saying like you were resigned to being in a bad job or underpaid or anything like that, because absolutely not, you deserve better than that. But I think for you, I'm just trying to make this point that like the emotional reward matters more than money ever could. But I feel like when you're doing something you love, that success financially and the money follows after. But I do think like if you had to choose, Pal 5, between changing lives for decent but mediocre pay versus doing something soul-sucking and corporate or like telemarketing or something, but the pay is really, really good, I feel like most of you would probably choose the work that actually means something. And that's the thing, because you're the kind of person who pours their whole heart into what they do, you become so valuable that you end up being indispensable in any place that you work. You are the one that people ask for. I would imagine people request you specifically because, yes, you're good at your job, but they can also feel that you genuinely care about what you do, and you also treat people with respect, and you understand them on a level that not many people do. So I can absolutely see a timeline where you've been somewhere a few years and you finally find your voice, and you're like, listen, if I don't get a pay rise this time at my annual review, I'm going to have to take myself elsewhere. And they're like, oh, because long term, they know losing you means losing clients that have invested in you and losing trust, losing the thing that makes people come back. So they are forced to pay you what you're worth. But I also do just want to say that can be a journey, because for you guys, it isn't always easy to ask for what you deserve, especially if you have dealt with a little bit of people pleasing. We did get a bit of this energy coming through in Pal 3. If you felt called to Pal 3, you might get something from that. Or it's this mentality of like, you know, I can't just leave them, they need me. Or I know the company is struggling, I can't ask them for more right now. It's hard for you guys to not make those things your problem. But over time, when you're pouring so much effort in and the reward doesn't match, bitterness creeps in because the exchange doesn't feel fair. And that's literally the vampire theme coming through again. It's not that you don't want to give, it's that you can't be in take environments where, again, nobody's replenishing you. And I got a similar example about nail tech coming through in Pal 3. So again, there might be messages in there for you, but you know, this can show up in any form of work, even if you work for yourself. So let's say you are this nail tech and you do a client's nails, and that client says to you at the end, oh, could I pay you next time? I'm really struggling with rent this month. And listen, you know, if you know them and you trust them and it's genuinely a one-off, like you know they're good for it, they just need a bit of time, then maybe your personal boundaries allow for that every now and again. Like maybe they do, I don't know. It's fine if they don't, but maybe they do. But if it becomes a pattern, repeated leniency, repeated excuses, somebody always asking for extensions, and they're not appreciating that you have bills too, you have responsibilities too, you also have to eat, then you have to ask yourself, is this mutually beneficial, or are they taking advantage of my compassion? And I know some people listening will be like, well, I'd tell them no immediately, and fair enough, but I also want to acknowledge that for small business owners that can be genuinely stressful, because you do get customers with zero respect who will threaten bad reviews, or they'll make things up online, or they'll try to ruin your reputation if you don't bend over backwards. So it's not always as simple as people make it sound. But you are still allowed to say no, because realistically, why is your time, your effort, your artistry worth less than anybody else's? Like, does somebody really need to prioritize the luxury of getting their nails done if money is that tight? And is it your responsibility to fund that luxury? Because let's be honest, would that person walk into Tesco and fill up their trolley and then go to the checkout and then be like, oh, sorry, love, can I pay for this cantaloupe next month? No, and Tesco would not accept that. They have rules for a reason. So you are allowed to have boundaries and rules too. And the thing is, you guys actually know how to communicate that in a really kind and compassionate way. And sometimes people will still kick off because some people just want someone to scream at so that they don't have to take accountability. But you cannot keep sacrificing your comfort and security to keep someone else happy. You don't have to be a punching bag. You're allowed to protect your energy, and that's when you thrive, when you're able to protect it. And this is where reciprocity, like we mentioned, becomes absolutely everything, because yes, you might have clients or people who try to take advantage of your good nature, but you also have the other kind. You will attract the kind of clients that feed your soul, those ones who appreciate you, who respect you, and who want you to succeed. Like, maybe when you squeeze a client in, they will turn around and give you the biggest tip ever because they're genuinely grateful. Maybe they are constantly recommending you and singing your praises, hyping you up online, and sending you pictures like, girl, these nails have lasted ages, like, you're the best. And that's the point, it's reciprocal. It's you feed me and I'll feed you energy, not people expecting you to work on Christmas Day last minute because they think you've got nothing better to do, but people who actually treat access to you like the privilege it is. It doesn't have to be that example, but it's somebody recognizing, like, Pal 5 is an artist, they're a wizard, nobody does it like them, they're the best at what they do, and I'm going to appreciate that. I won't take that for granted. That feeds your soul. And this can show up in other fields too. If you work in emergency or crisis situations, you are not a 24/7 crisis hotline, and that's important to know. But this could be like people writing to you afterwards saying like, you know, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. If you're a nurse, it could be patients saying like, oh, you're always so run off your feet, but you're still so kind. Like, I see how hard you work. Just people recognizing the effort you put in feels really good to your soul, Pal 5. It can be tangible results, you know, seeing improvement, seeing recovery. I'm getting something about an occupational therapist, like somebody actually recovering from something, seeing the payoff of what you've poured into something or someone, and having people actually acknowledge like, I couldn't have done it without you. Your help has been instrumental. Is that the right word? Monumental? Something mental. Your support has been mental. That's what nourishes you, being seen, being valued, and being celebrated. I'm getting that community is important for you, even if your work is heavy, even if it does involve crisis or vulnerability or dealing with big emotions and you tend to absorb that. It's like you need a team or an environment that knows how to celebrate wins and lift each other's spirits. You need to be in an environment that supports like banter and having a laugh sometimes. You need people who can like hold the weight with you, not just dump it on you. People who, when you're having a bad day, they'll be like, I've got you, let me take something off your plate, instead of, I'm busy, deal with it yourself. Because a good team makes all the difference, and it can be so disheartening when management only calls meetings to tell you what you're doing wrong. For instance, like, you need someone saying, you know, this month has been tough, but here's what we've done right. Like, the team have really pulled together, because you are so sensitive to atmosphere and you do not need to be absorbing other people's cynicism and moodiness on top of everything else. And if you don't work with a team, like even if you're self-employed, this can still apply in terms of the clients you choose to work with, the people you attract, the collaborations you choose, the people you hire, the community you build around your own independent work. Because Three of Cups can represent chosen family, it can be soul family, it can be the people you decide to surround yourself with. And I'm also getting, with me saying family, that family might genuinely be a part of your purpose too, because obviously we have that Cancer energy coming through. That makes me think of mother energy. That might not apply for everyone, but for a few people, being a parent could actually be part of your purpose and your work in this lifetime, whether that's having a child in the traditional way or via IVF or fostering or adopting, working in child services, supporting young people, biological children or not. And I know that's not everyone, so only take it if it resonates. But raising the next generation is one of the most important jobs in the world, and I think it's so often taken for granted because it's unpaid labour. And I am a child-free person at the moment. I am somebody who has not yet had a child. I've chosen that. But people love to like put that down, but I see so much value in it. Like, people love to say, you know, anyone can have a child, but being a parent is so much more than that. And if that's something you want, or if that's something you already do, it can be deeply rewarding to see the humans you've nurtured grow into kind, compassionate people because they've learned that from you. And sometimes Three of Cups, it brings in reunion energy too. It's like, I'm getting this idea of someone coming back to you and saying, because of you, this is where I am now. Because of your help, I could progress. Because of the way you nurtured me, I became who I am. And that kind of acknowledgement hits you right in the heart, Pal 5, because it reminds you that what you give truly matters. And nurturing others, it can absolutely nurture your inner child too. But there's nuance, because we don't want all your healing to become dependent on somebody else's healing. There has to be balance. Like, you can only do so much. And it does start with you being looked after too. Okay, we talked about that kind of thing for a very, very long time. Now, with the otter and cattail piece clarified by the Four of Wands, I will say straight up, whatever it is you do, whatever your field of work is, you are meant to feel at peace with it. And I know that might sound contradictory if you work in something more fast-paced, intense, demanding, high pressure, energy draining, because peace, it doesn't always mean like quiet on the outside. But what I mean is, when you look around at your work environment, even on the hard days, there still should be this underlying contentment of like, yeah, this is tough sometimes and I have bad days, but I know ultimately I'm on the right path. I know this is the work I'm meant to be doing. This feeds my soul. And if you don't feel that, if you're getting that subtle nudge that something isn't quite right, if the environment feels off, the people feel off, the job itself feels off, like it doesn't feel as though it's a place of belonging, that matters. And I don't mean that like, oh, you've chosen the wrong career, like pack it up. It could be that you're meant to be in that field, you're meant to be doing that type of work, but maybe you're meant to do it in a different place or with different people or under a different company or in a different structure. Because what feeds your soul is work that feels aligned with your purpose and actually brings you a sense of healing, where you can safely say, this is where I belong, this is what I'm meant to be doing, I feel at home and I feel celebrated here. And I'm getting a really specific way to describe this. If you're in a job where you're always masking, like you can never truly fully be your authentic self, even when you're in the break room, or even if you've been there for years, but you still don't quite feel like your desk is really yours, like you never feel at home there, it's this feeling of feeling like you're stumbling around in somebody else's home. And yeah, the example I'm getting, you know when you go to a friend's house, unless it's like your bestie and you're basically family, let's say you go to a friend's house for the first time, like this is the first time you've been in their home, you usually don't just go and open the cupboard and grab a glass out of the pantry. You ask like, can I have a glass of water please? But in your own house, you're not asking permission to drink from your own kitchen. So if your work feels like that, like you still have to ask permission, or you don't really know where the glasses are, or you're hyper aware of like, I don't belong here, this isn't my home, you can't relax, it feels like you're stepping on eggshells, that's a sign, not that you failed, but that a change might actually be welcome, because the work that feeds your soul is the place where you can exhale. And for some of you, you know, that home energy might be literal, like this could genuinely point to like a work from home or remote setup being the best thing for you, because your space is your own, you can, you know, decorate your desk how you like, you can work from any room you like, you can cultivate an environment that genuinely supports your nervous system, you can have personal input in the way you work, and you can feel comfortable, you can do it in your pajamas if you want, unless you're on like a video call with somebody, then you might have to put a shirt on, but yeah, like obviously there are levels to that, you know, if you're working from an office, I'm not telling you to rock up in your pajamas every day, it's more like a check-in with yourself, do I feel comfortable with these people? Do I feel safe in meetings? Do I feel like I can share my input and it will be respected? Or do I feel like I'm around toxic, draining, judgmental people who do not make me feel secure? For some of you, it's about finding the right people, and for others, it's realizing like, actually, I prefer my own company, or I do my best work independently. Either way, peace is the priority here. And it goes back to stability. I do think it feeds your soul to have steadiness, to have stable income. a schedule that's relatively consistent, a sense that your job isn't constantly being threatened. You guys, I don't think you do well under systems where it feels like you are responsible for everyone else's security, or when managers are like breathing down your neck and saying, you didn't make X amount of sales this week, you are bringing the company down, you need to do more. No, that's just not good for you guys. If you're working for an employer, what feeds your soul is an employer who understands they are responsible for their business and they appreciate the effort you put in instead of dumping that stress onto you. And if you work for yourself, it's still about accountability, but with grace, like remembering that you are a one-person team and you can only do so much in a day. And it's no good bullying yourself with like, I need to do more when you're already doing your best. You need to celebrate the fact you're doing your best. I'm also getting repeated messages about, working close to home. So it might not feed your soul to have a job where you're constantly like out on the road or traveling all the time, never able to put down roots. There's something about you thriving when there's a specific place you can build a life around, something long lasting. And even if in the past you have flitted from job to job, or maybe you like grew up moving around a lot, if you were like an expat or something like that, maybe you just haven't found that this is my home feeling yet, but I feel like once you do find it, you're going to stay. It's very much long haul energy. The Four of Wands wants roots, not this constant upheaval. And because the Four of Wands is harmony paired with peace, high conflict environments probably don't feed your soul either. I'm seeing something about the sensory environment being important. I'm getting something about calming or muted pastel colours, calming vibes, nothing too overstimulating. You could benefit from quiet and gentle music or ambient sound, not people screaming and yelling over the top of each other. I'm literally picturing a spa or retreat type of energy. I'm getting the smell of essential oils. I'm hearing like soft music, or that feeling of like where your shoulders drop the second you walk in. Some of you guys could work with your hands specifically. I'm getting healing hands, massage, body work, holistic stuff. Any environment that has a soothing quality. If you think about a spa environment versus a kids' play centre, and I'm not saying like if you do work in a kids' play centre and there are always kids screaming in the ball pit and so much chaos going on, I'm not saying you are wrong for working at the kids' play centre, but it's about finding some kind of peace within that. Like, if you work at that kids' play centre, maybe it's not going to feel like a spa all of the time, right? But you could advocate for employee wellness within that environment. Like, maybe what nourishes you is having a proper break room that cuts off from the noise, somewhere you can decompress and calm down and breathe and reset on your break, because your nervous system needs that downtime. Peace doesn't always mean that the whole job is quiet. Sometimes it means you have access to pockets of quiet so that you don't burn out. That is important for you guys. And there's definitely something about milestones and celebrations. Four of Wands is kind of that we did it moment. So it feeds your soul when your effort is acknowledged. So when you get your props, when you can see what you've built paying off. This could be anything from winning a prize or getting an award, a promotion, because you put the work in and you put down roots and you created stability. And it matters that people recognize that. And it could be like a big full-on awards ceremony, or it could be small, sort of like acknowledgement. Like, in school when people used to get star of the week for good behavior, it's that kind of thing, but in adult form. So maybe a bonus at the end of that month or something. Someone being highlighted for working hard, being acknowledged in the team, being celebrated, even just being told, I see you, you smashed it. It's nourishment. You feel like you're valued when somebody can affirm that to you with their actions and their words. With empowerment, welcome the shadow, clarified by the Ace of Swords. This is where your discernment really comes through, Pal 5, because you are someone who can see into people and through people. You cut through the noise and you get straight to the core. Things other people try to hide, you will locate them. You'll find them. You'll sniff them out. You're like a beagle. Things that are buried and repressed or lost within them, you find you can see the shadows where most people are only looking at the sun. And because of that, you tend to be incredibly attuned to vibes. You just know when something is off, even if you can't immediately explain why. It's like when you meet someone and it's almost as if you've got this x-ray vision, you can see straight through to the soul. And when you say something feels off, other people might say like, oh, what? Like, they seem really nice. I don't see that. And you're like, yeah, I know you don't, but something's not right. And 9 times out of 10, your gut instinct turns out to be spot on. And what's wild is that, this doesn't feel like effort for you. You're not sitting there like analysing people consciously. I mean, maybe you do sometimes, but for the most part, this information just sort of presents itself. It just seems obvious. you can take one look at someone and it's like, oh, that's what they're insecure about. Oh, that's some unresolved childhood stuff. Yeah, that's a defense mechanism. You know things about people that they haven't explicitly told you, and sometimes even they don't fully realize it yet. And the thing is, for people who don't want to be seen that clearly, that can feel really, really uncomfortable, especially if they don't have that same gift, because what's obvious to you might be something they think that they hide extremely well. So when you identify it easily, it can make them feel raw and exposed. Like, hang on a sec, how do you know that? Like, have you been stalking me? And you haven't. I mean, usually, I don't think you have. Power 5. It's not that you've done something wrong or been invasive. It's just that you forget sometimes that other people don't see what you see automatically. I'm getting this really specific example here. It's like you might meet someone and you just pick up on all these subtle details from the way they talk, the things they don't say as well, and how they frame their story. And you just say something with certainty. It can really be anything. This is just a random example. But you're like, oh, because your parents are divorced, right? And they're like, I didn't tell you that. And at first they might feel a bit defensive or weird about it, because to them it feels like an assumption. But it's not really an assumption. It's data you've absorbed without trying, and it almost always turns out to be true. And that can make people go, you know, wow, I thought I did that really well. What a bummer, because what about me says I have divorced parents? You know what I mean? And when I say people hide things, I don't necessarily mean it in a malicious way. Yes, sometimes you see through ill intention immediately, but a lot of the time, people hide things simply because they don't want to be vulnerable or judged or exposed. Things they genuinely shouldn't feel ashamed of, like having divorced parents. There is absolutely nothing shameful about that. But if they carry internal shame around it, whatever it is, or they feel insecure about it, or they don't want people to know, then when you clock it so easily, it can trigger that insecurity, and they might start spiraling like, does everyone see this? Is it written all over me? And maybe it isn't. Maybe it's something uniquely picked up on by you, and your intention there is never to shame anyone, it's to empower them. You are familiar with the shadows that come with being human, and you are not afraid of them. You understand that shadows exist, and the light couldn't exist without them, and that we can work with them instead of pretending they're not there. And a huge part of that comes from your own self-awareness. You understand other people so deeply because you've done that work with yourself. You know what it's like to feel certain things. You've been there in other versions of you. You don't live in cognitive dissonance with yourself. You have held yourself accountable when you've acted from a shadow place, if you ever have, and you understand where your own reactions come from, emotionally and cognitively, and that's the Ace of Swords energy. And because you understand your own motivations so clearly, you immediately recognize them in others, and that is a gift. You know, on a soul level, that awareness is the most empowering thing there is. I can genuinely imagine you guys guiding people through awakenings or big moments of self-realization. You could be a reader yourself, you could be a counselor, a therapist, a psychologist, a coach, a guide, a mentor. Anything that involves helping people see themselves clearly would really feed your soul. And even if you don't work in a role like that, this still shows up as incredibly sharp discernment, knowing who to trust, knowing what to say, knowing when to say yes and when to walk away, being able to sense the shadow side of opportunities, not just people. So if you work with brands, clients, companies, collaborators, you can spot hidden motives a mile away. You can feel when something comes with strings attached. And what feeds your soul is trusting that instinct. What doesn't feed your soul is when you ignore that instinct. So when you get that gut feeling of this feels off, but then your empathy kicks in, that hyper empathy, and you tell yourself, oh, I'm being judgmental, like I'm being too harsh, I should give them the benefit of the doubt, I don't want to make assumptions, and then you override your discernment in favor of purely compassion, only to later realize you were right all along and you should have listened to yourself in the first instance. That instinct, it doesn't make you cold or critical or unkind. It exists to protect a heart as pure as yours. And with that Ace of Swords, yeah, there's that message about being seen clearly yourself. Because people who lack this same kind of discernment, people who refuse to look at their own shadows, are often the ones who take others at face value. They project, or they just completely misunderstand you. They make reductive judgments because they don't have depth with themselves. So you might experience projection, being wildly misunderstood, people seeing you in this very one-dimensional way that doesn't reflect who you actually are. It's like somebody looking at a quiet person and deciding they're boring, or assuming they have nothing important to say because they get all their self-worth from being loud, without realizing that quiet people are often observing and processing and holding entire worlds inside of themselves. But people can only see others as far as they have seen themselves. And that's why it feeds your soul to be around people who get you, people who have done their own shadow work, people who can see themselves clearly and therefore see you clearly too. You're incredible at working with the darker aspects of life and alchemizing them into something meaningful, turning pain into purpose, turning anger into ambition and struggle into creativity, helping people with addictions channel their experiences into hope, helping people heal shame around taboo topics, sexuality, identity, desire, because that's what you do. You identify the shadow and you transmute it and you turn it into something empowered. It feeds your soul to ask, what is this emotion trying to tell me? What purpose does this behavior serve? And then to reshape it so it aligns with a higher purpose for yourself and for the world around you. You do not fear the shadow, you actually work with it, and that is where your power lies. With hope on the horizon, clarified by enlightenment. Enlightenment, by the way, I believe that is meant to represent the judgment card, but I'm hearing the phrase, the truth can set you free. And Power 5, this feels like such a big part of what feeds your soul. You hold space for honesty. You hold space for confessions. For the stuff people have been carrying around in their chest for years and they've never quite found the right moment or the right person to say out loud to. There's something about you where people just open up to you. I'm even doing it myself, and it's not in this forced way. It's like your presence gives them permission. I'm getting this image of something very spiritual, like confession at church. You don't have to be religious in any way, but this energy is very spiritual in and of itself. There's something sacred and private about it. It's that moment where someone finally says the thing they've been rehearsing in their head for ages, and the minute it leaves their mouth, you can just feel the weight start to lift. And that's what I'm getting here. It's about release. It's about people releasing emotions they've kept buried for years, shame, grief, anger, guilt, fear, all of the things they've swallowed down because it felt easier than facing them. And I'm getting a completely different example now that still carries the same theme. And I'm actually thinking of a police interrogation. Imagine you are a detective and you're dealing with the most stone-faced, cold-hearted person who seems completely unmoved. You be the kind of person who somehow gets them to crack. And it's not through intimidation, but it's because you reach the soul level truth underneath that mask. You reach that shadow part of them. You reach whatever it is they've hidden even from themselves. And before you know it, this serial killer is sat there in tears confessing everything because you've accessed a depth most people never even touch. And now that obviously doesn't mean you have to work in a field like that. Again, I could see you being an incredible therapist, counselor, guide, because therapy is literally where so much varied stuff comes out. But I'm also seeing this in, it could be in any space. I'm also thinking of a spiritual space specifically. I'm getting the vibe of a retreat right now, you as a leader or facilitator or guide, not in a culty way, but more you create an environment where people feel safe enough to be honest, where you coax a group towards healing through truth and vulnerability and shadow work. And I don't know why this is very specific, but I'm thinking of a scene in 90210 where Naomi and some of the other girls go to a retreat. And Naomi has that moment where she's really raw and vulnerable with the group about what happened to her. I'm pretty sure it was after she had been essayed. Trigger warning. And I'm getting something like that, you giving people a sacred space to finally speak, finally process, finally be held without judgment. And it doesn't have to be an official retreat setting. I'm getting this happens everywhere you go. It's just how you connect. You make it safe for people to say the thing they've never said out loud. And again, trigger warning for mention of SA here if you would like to skip a couple of minutes, but I do feel that could be relevant. Part of what you're able to hold is the complexity of trauma, because with certain experiences, and schmexual trauma is just one example, I'm sorry I have to say it like that, there are so many layered emotions that people can't always revisit that easily. And society can be brutal because it often acts like there's a right and a wrong way to be a victim. Some survivors cannot engage in intimacy at all after the fact, and other survivors respond at the opposite end of the spectrum with things like hyperschmexuality as a way to regain control. But hyperschmexuality tends to be treated with far less compassion. And sometimes, people have thoughts and fantasies or complicated feelings that they don't feel safe to admit because they're terrified of being misunderstood or judged or having their experience questioned. And the point is, you're the kind of person who can sit with all of that nuance. You can get people to release what they've buried, their anger, their wounding, their grief, their shame, the stuff they've been storing inside. You know how to set it free. So I'm really seeing you as a trigger and a catalyst for this kind of truth telling. And again, it doesn't really matter what field you're in. You could be in literally any career and still still have this effect. Even if you're the nail tech we mentioned, even if you're the bartender, you'd be surprised by how often these jobs turn into accidental therapy sessions, by the way. You know, people sit down, they start talking, and somehow you get through to them, you reach a part of them that needs to be heard, and once they release it, that's where this hope on the horizon hits. Because yeah, this does remind me a lot of the Star card. It's that energy of like, you help people understand there is still possibility here, there is still healing here. They're not a lost cause, they are not broken beyond repair. Someone understands and there is a way through. You help them process, you help them alchemize what they need to alchemize, you help them reach a new understanding of themselves, and that is so liberating to them. It's like you take what they've been bottling up and you make it safe enough for them to finally feel it, so they can move on instead of just surviving by ignoring. And I'm getting you've probably always done this in your personal life with friends, family, partners. You help people confront things, you help them work through it, you awaken them to new possibilities. You feel like a beacon sometimes, like the one bright thing in a dark room that people are drawn to because they can feel that there's something real there. Something about you makes people like see the light is what I'm getting. Something about you brings faith back. And honestly, you'll be surprised by how easily you do this, because some of you are listening and you might be thinking like, I'm not doing anything profound. Like, I'm not a doctor. I don't save lives. I mean, maybe you are doctors, like some of you could be, but even if you're not and you feel like what you do is unimportant, you do not have to be like literally saving lives in a job to change someone's life. And this is where we come back to that thing of like the small acts of kindness matter. You know, earlier when I was talking about like I'd rather be the person smiling at a stranger or complimenting someone or being gentle with somebody who clearly needs it and who can't be gentle to themselves right now. You know, showing up for a loved one with care, doing something thoughtful just because you can. You find meaning in those small moments, and you'd be shocked how often that tiny moment is the thing that tips someone back towards hope, especially when you don't know how close to the edge they are. Like, little things really do matter. And right now I want to give another personal example because for some reason I am just oversharing like heck on this reading today. And this is a lot longer than the other piles, it really is. But yeah, I'm going to give this example because this is kind of one that is like, reminds us of how we're not always trying consciously to help, but sometimes us just doing something normal lands in bigger ways than we realise. So the example I'm going to give, this is about when I used to sell things on Vinted. A couple of years back, I think I cleared out my wardrobe and I started selling a ton of bits on Vinted. So I went through this phase where I was selling something pretty much every few days. And I'm not talking anything like fancy or expensive. I mean, dresses for under a £5 or something. And normally the interactions were super basic. Like, I'd message the buyer like, oh, thank you for buying, I'll send you proof of postage. They'd say thanks, I'd post it. They'd leave a good review, done. Like, nice interactions, fine. But there was this one moment where a girl bought a bundle from me and I accepted a pretty decent discount. And when it arrived, she messaged me this longer message just expressing how much she loved the dresses and how grateful she was that I accepted her offer because she was going through a hard time. I think she'd had like a breakup or something. And she was saying how nice she felt in the dresses and how she really needed that little confidence boost. And I'm using this because, you know, I didn't list my clothes that day thinking like, wow, I'm helping people so much. I'm doing charity work out here. I didn't even clock it as an act of kindness because it was just me doing something normal. But she expressed that it really helped her, and it's just proof that any random idea you get, something that feels small and ordinary even, can be exactly what somebody needs. Even just posting somebody's dresses on time, keeping someone updated, treating them like a human, it can all make a difference. Giving them a good discount. You never know when someone might need that little nudge on their healing journey. And I'm not saying that my dresses magically healed all her problems or cured her or anything like that, but I'm saying it's about the little things we do. Like, every little thing helps. That is the point here. Because if it could make her feel excited for life again, if it could make her feel a little bit more like herself, I was really glad I accepted the discount, knowing that it made her smile during that rough time. And that's the energy I'm getting around you too. You can be the difference between someone feeling hopeless and someone being able to see the hope on the horizon again. There's also something here about your presence itself being really, really soothing. I'm hearing like music to their ear. This could be something about your voice, something about you being able to talk people down from panic. You can calm them, you can make them feel safe. And you'd be surprised, I think, by how many people have quietly walked away from a conversation with you thinking like, okay, I can do this, I can get through this, because you help them see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I think what feeds your soul here is that balance. It's knowing that you've helped and knowing that you've made an impact, knowing feeling you've offered clarity or encouragement or hope without turning it into this burden where you feel like it's all your responsibility. Because people do have to do their own healing, they have to want to do the work, but when someone is willing and you can support them through that process, it genuinely feeds your soul, even if it's one small thing, even if it's just being the person who helps them tell the truth for the first time. That matters, and it changes their life. With Neptune clarified by the Ace of Cups, this really confirms something we've already been touching on throughout this pile. You are a catalyst for emotional awakenings. You unearth things in people that have been buried so deeply, sometimes even they didn't realize they were there. You spark feelings in others that they did not know were possible, and you do this far more naturally than you probably realize. And this isn't just about work in the job sense, this is very much about purpose, the work you do as a human being. It honestly would not surprise me if people from your past, ex-partners, old friends, still say things like, I've never experienced love like that before. Because the way you love, the way you care, the way you show up emotionally, it opens people up in ways they're not always prepared for, and that applies across the board. Friendships, family dynamics, relationships. It's like you invite people into deeper waters without forcing them. You don't skim the surface, but you do lead from the heart, and because of that, you have to care deeply about what you do, Pal 5, in order for it to feed your soul. You can't do things half-heartedly. You can't do things just for clicks or likes or money or validation. It's like whatever you create, whatever you give your energy to, it has to come from the heart space. It just has to. It has to mean something to you. Otherwise, you just don't light up. You might still function, but you don't feel alive. And Neptune, it also brings in this important element to do with projection. And I feel like some of you have probably said, or at least thought at certain points in your life, like, I get strange reactions from people sometimes. Like, people either really love me or they really don't. Like, I'm kind of polarizing. And that's not because you're doing anything wrong, it's because Neptune is mirror energy, you know? And it goes back to that thing we said, people can only see you as far as they can or are willing to see themselves. So if someone has a good relationship with themselves, if they are emotionally honest and compassionate and self-aware, they are far more likely to recognize and love those same qualities in you. And those are the connections that really feed your soul. But if someone doesn't trust themselves, if they are dishonest with themselves, if they live in self-betrayal or shame, they will often project that straight onto you. And I'm getting this very specific example, like if you have ever had a friend in the past who accuses you of lying, and that's genuinely hurt you because you know how deeply you care for that person, and you're sat there thinking like, why would you ever think I would lie to you? The answer isn't about you at all. It's about them. They don't trust themselves. They know that they lie. They know they hide things, and because they don't operate from honesty internally, they struggle to understand how somebody else could. And it's that same pattern you might see in controlling relationships, you know, where one partner is like constantly accusing the other of cheating, when in reality, they're the one doing things they have to hide. Because when someone isn't aligned with their own integrity, purity and compassion just don't make sense to them. They can't fathom it. And that's where this sacred mirroring comes in. You know, Neptune essentially dissolves the boundary between self and other. You might notice that in close relationships, people start mirroring you, your phrases, your body language, maybe even your style. And you might unconsciously mirror each other the closer you become. You might do it as well. And for people with strong Neptunian or 12th house energy, it can sometimes feel difficult to separate where you end and they begin, because on a soul level, you recognize that illusion of the other. There is no other. Neptune understands that. We're all connected, right? Like, that's the whole fucking point of why I do this, like, because we're all so connected. That's like collective energy, you know, and that gives you an extraordinary ability to understand every perspective and to feel deeply into others' experiences and their psyche. But that does not mean, again, you are here to be anyone else's emotional punching bag. You are here to bridge the gap between self and other. Yeah, you are here to speak to people's souls and remind them that they still have one. You're here to love deeply and to show compassion and hold space. But you're also here to activate growth, to make people uncomfortable in a way that leads to change, to reflect things back to them that push them towards doing better. And not everyone wants that. Not everyone is ready for that. Not everyone is at that stage of their journey. And that can be difficult for you because you often see exactly what somebody needs and you know you could help them if they'd let you. But what feeds your soul is not forcing it. What feeds your soul is being invited freely. You thrive when people come to you, when they want to receive what you're offering, when they ask for your opinion, when they are willing to feel, reflect, grow, and take responsibility for their own healing. Because pouring your heart into people, environments, and situations that can't see you or can't value you and don't want to do the work themselves, that is draining. And we already saw how important it's for you not to live in that depletion. Neptune energy is so relevant here, whether that's strong Neptune placements, Pisces rising, Neptune in the 1st or the 12th, Venus in the 12th as well. This is deep, empathic, spiritual, psychic energy. We've said it in other parts today, but you absorb emotions like a sponge. You feel the collective, you are tuned into the unseen. And when this energy is channeled consciously, it is beautiful, it's healing, it's creative, and it's mystical. But when those boundaries aren't in place, it can become overwhelming and overstimulating. So what feeds your soul is using this gift intentionally, loving deeply, yes, but not self-abandoning. It's being compassionate, but not to the point of erasing yourself in search of helping the other at all costs. It's sharing wisdom and warmth and emotional safety with people who are actually ready to receive it. Because when that happens, you don't just help people with their healing journeys, you change their lives in these profound ways. And that is very much part of the work you're here to do. Pile 5. With Cancer clarified by the 8 of Pentacles, this really brings it back to something very simple. It feeds your soul to pour your whole heart into the things you genuinely love and care about. You are someone who's here to build things slowly. You're here to nurture, to support, and to see things grow and bloom over time. You guys are not interested in quick wins or superficial success or easy gratification. You want to look back and say, like, I showed up for this, I stayed, I didn't give up, I accomplished something. And the 8 of Pentacles, it's that energy of like blood, sweat and tears. It's dedication and it's consistency and it's showing up day after day. And at first, you might think that's a strange pairing with Cancer, because Cancer is like softness and being nurturing, it's watery energy. Cancer is receptive and emotional and intuitive. And the 8 of Pentacles, it can be about like, it's earthly, it's grafting and grinding and hands-on effort. But you embody both things, because love takes work, devotion takes effort. Everybody wants love, everybody wants to attract love in whatever form. Not everybody wants to do it though. Care isn't passive, it's an active choice you make again and again. And that doesn't mean, working yourself into the ground, burning out, never resting. In fact, this Cancer energy reminds us that the carer also needs care. The mother has to mother herself too, which means good boundaries, self-care, knowing when to rest. All of that is essential so you can keep showing up from a full cup rather than an empty one. But choosing to love, choosing to stay, choosing to invest, that's something you do with intention, it's something you do deliberately. And when that love is reciprocated, when it flows both ways, it becomes deeply rewarding for you guys. I'm randomly getting a line that Chuck says in Better Call Saul when he's talking about being a lawyer, and he says, I dedicated my life to this. And that intensity, that conviction, I'm getting that for you, Pal 5. Like, it's the work that feeds your soul is something where you could genuinely say the same. Like, it was hard, it wasn't easy, but I'd do it again because it matters, because it means something. One of the strongest examples coming through here is caregiving, and especially caring for somebody with additional or specific needs. That doesn't have to relate to you specifically. I'm just using this to put this idea into context. But let's say you are raising a child on the autistic spectrum or with a physical or mental health condition. And just to be clear here, again, I don't have children of my own, but I've worked around children and I've seen firsthand how demanding that role can be. Caregivers have to keep such a level head even when a child is dysregulated and overwhelmed and lashing out and screaming or exhibiting some challenging behaviours. And of course, that doesn't mean the love disappears in those moments. It doesn't. But there are times when acts of love become harder because everything feels so all-consuming, and it can be difficult to imagine improvement or progress when you're right in the thick of it. But this 8 of Pentacles energy is about continuing to show up anyway. So instead of saying like, this is too hard, what's the point? It's choosing to say, I'm going to keep showing up, I'm going to keep advocating, I'm going to keep guiding, even when it's exhausting, because this person deserves it. They deserve my love. And it's hard to get that balance of pushing through without it being to the detriment of yourself. But sometimes it is about pushing through for the greater good, fighting for the right support, having that dedication. I'm also thinking about caring for older family members. For example, someone with dementia where aggression or personality changes can occur, and still choosing to care, still choosing to honour that person, because even if those moments of clarity are fleeting, when they remember who you are, when the connection comes back, those moments are priceless and they feed your soul because you know you showed up with integrity. And this is saying, you know, the things you don't give up on love you back. And when I say giving up, I don't mean not giving yourself time to rest. Those are two completely different things. When you nurture something though with consistency and with care, it grows and it responds, and that reward, you know, seeing someone you love thrive and improve and blossom in that example, but it could relate to a creation, that's everything to you. It doesn't have to be literal children, doesn't have to be family, but family metaphors are strong here, like a happy home life feeds your soul. Seeing the results of your hard work pay off feeds your soul. So whatever it is you build, whether it's a person or a project or a career or a business or a community, it's something that may feel hard at first, but you choose it because you genuinely care, because it gives you life in return. And I'm getting this random image. It's like someone reflecting years later, watching their child grown up, graduating, succeeding, living up to their potential, and that child saying to them, like, thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for believing in me when I couldn't. That is the kind of reward that nourishes you on an emotional level. That's that Eight of Pentacles payoff. But it also applies inwardly, you know, pouring into yourself, reminding yourself that perfection isn't required, but consistency is. Showing up imperfectly is still showing up. It's about going easier on yourself and letting rest be productive and part of the process. Creating boundaries that protect your energy so you can keep loving and caring without depleting yourself. With Cancer and the Eight of Pentacles, what feeds your soul is devotion, but devotion that is sustainable. It's love that is worked at but also returned. Care that is given freely but not at the expense of your own well-being. And when that balance is there, you guys thrive. And the things you dedicate yourself to, they flourish because of you. So that's what I'm getting for you, Pal 5, and that's where I'm going to leave you today, my loves. Thank you so much for spending your time and energy here with me. This pal was really long, and I really do appreciate you being here more than you know. If this reading resonated for you, please feel free to like, comment, hype, share, and sub, only if you feel called to. It's the best way to support a small channel like mine, and on a personal note, it genuinely means a lot to me. Even something as simple as leaving an emoji or telling me which pal you picked really helps. It lets me know you're here, that you see me, and that we're actually connecting, and that matters more to me than you could ever know. With that said, I love you lots, please take care of yourselves, and I'll see you very soon, Pal 5.